Good evening. I call to order this business meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District Governing Board. It is Monday, March 8, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. Item 1.2, roll call. All 5 board members are present. There is a quorum. Ms. Lynch, are you here? Okay. Ms. Lynch, Mr. Leedy are both here from the executive leadership team. Dr. Miller is absent tonight. Item 1.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve item 1.3, formal adoption of the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. The motion carries and the agenda is approved as presented. Item 1.4, call to fill out forms for call to the public and address agenda items. I know that's what's going on out there, so we will do that in a few minutes. Item 1.5, Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is being led by Mason Blavelt, a second grader from Black Mountain Elementary School. Mason, would you like to come on up? Sweetie, do you want to come up? Yeah. We're going to wait for you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mason. Item 1.6, President's Report. I'd like to congratulate the Cactus Shadows Varsity Cheer Squad. They are state champs, so brava to the ladies. And I have a couple comments I want to make about things that are further down on the agenda as part of my report. This is a very difficult evening for those associated with the CCUSD family, and I want to acknowledge the pain and anger caused by the rifts and reorganization derived from our budget shortfall. I too have been RIFed and have worked in both the general ed and in the SI, Spanish immersion program, so I understand the impact that our decisions have on those folks. I know some of the folks that have been RIFed, and they're excellent, as I'm sure the ones are that I don't know. And I would like to thank them for their service and dedication to this district. As a board member, I have an obligation to view our problems from a macro perspective, looking at the long-term sustainability of classes and programs under the current funding constraints. The priority is to keep doors open, to continue to offer great education for our students, and to support our dedicated staff. I believe that we can proceed forward in a positive direction, albeit with bumps in the road, because we have a lot of talent and great families. We have that small town family feel that's unique to this small district. The district leaders will be working very intentionally, using a multi-pronged approach at trying to solve the funding issues unique to the CCUSD. I'm confident that we will continue to maintain our great standing, but we will need to work together with our eye on the goal of maintaining excellent education for our students and hiring and retaining superior teachers and staff. And with that, I turn comments over to my colleagues. Anybody have any comments?
I'd just like to kind of echo what President Hatcher said. While I was not RIFed here, I did, when I was working at Desert Willow, get moved because of budget cuts. And I did end up moving to Sonoran Trails and spent some time there. So I do know about the anxiety that this causes, both internally and externally. And as she said, we'll go about this the best way we can for everybody. So thank you for that.
I would just like to concur with what both Beth and Jeff said. I've been in this district long enough, and I've been on the board long enough. I've been through this RIF process on previous boards. It is not an easy task on either side. And just about everybody that ends up being RIF'd, I can associate you, in some way or some way, shape, or form with interactions with my own kids, personal interactions with you. It's not easy. And as Beth said, we have to take a step back from this and really look at it from a global aspect, because our goal is to deliver the best product that we can. And we have to do it in a very pragmatic way. And I do it with a lot of heart. And this is probably one of the worst kind of board meetings to be at, to be honest with you. So with that.
Member Brown or Member Walker?
Yeah, I think just as a parent, it's really hits home when it affects your kids directly. And for that, know that every decision's been really hard, but we have to look at every student within the district. And so it's definitely a hard meeting, and it's not taken lightly. And especially as a parent, I get how important every program is to each one of these students. And again, we just have to look at it all the way from the top down. So appreciate you guys trusting us with this.
Thank you, Board. Item 1.7, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Monroe.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I echo your heartfelt sentiment, and I can feel your heart. I appreciate in my first superintendent job working with a board that we can stand side by side and make goals to solve problems and moving forward, so we're not in these type of situations again. So I do have a superintendent's report. There's certainly a lot to celebrate, and amidst some of the celebrations, I'll have also just a statement that I'd like to read. Well, at Cactus Shadows, we've had a very successful athletic winter season. We went from almost not having a season to having a very successful season. So both of our boys and girls basketball teams are region champions, and they're heading into the playoffs this week. Our girls are hosting the first round on Tuesday, and the boys will be traveling to Williamsfield on Thursday. Boys soccer had a 5-0 shutout on their senior night to conclude the season, while our girls soccer is headed to Cienega High School on Wednesday for round one of their state playoffs. As you know, our Spirit Line had a wonderful ending to their season, competing at AIA State this past Saturday. Palm placed fourth, and as the board is aware, our cheer team at Cactus Shadows High School is now a 12-time state championship program. I was able to be there for that. Mr. Vining and I were talked into laying down on the sidewalk in front of their picture, which was fun, but it was wonderful to celebrate with the girls and the coaches and to see them win that. It was a proud moment. We could not be more proud of our sport athletes, our coaches, and everything they've overcome this season to have such a wonderful season. Is Katiana here? I'd like to call up Katiana Blackwell-Scott. Katiana, you want to come up here, and why don't you stand on that X? I'm going to brag about her a little bit and then come up and take a picture. Katiana is a Cactus Shadows National Merit Finalist. So stand on the X here and then turn the audience to the audience. Let me just describe kind of this wonderful young lady and what this accomplishment means, as I know it's been a while since a lot of us have been in high school. She was one of 15,000 semifinalists that were named finalists last month. Last year as a semifinalist, just so you know, Katiana had a 4.75 weighted GPA, ranked 8th in her class out of 477 students, and she scored a perfect 36 on her ACT and a 1470 on her PSAT. Now, that's not, Katiana is also a varsity club diver, and she volunteers at the National Charity League, Mom's Pantry, Teen Lifeline, and Puppy Love. Congratulations, Katiana. Another wonderful student to celebrate is Aviva Merchandani. She's an 8th grader who attends our Academy of Excellence. She placed second in the regional spelling bee held by Paradise Valley Unified School District on February the 12th. She spelled 49 out of 50 words correctly in the online spelling bee platform. Now, just so you're aware, there was a tie for first. Both students spelled 50 out of 50 words correctly. So that shows you exactly how tight that was. So those two will proceed to the state spelling bee. However, we are very proud of Eva and her accomplishment. I also want to pause here for just a minute and express a statement regarding the challenging times that we're in with regards to COVID-19, the pandemic, and positions and programs that are being impacted due to our current budget constraints. I do appreciate very much the positive outlook of the board, of the staff, and everyone's hardworking efforts on behalf of all of our students during this time. That is certainly a celebration for me. Facing a reduction of approximately 10% of our maintenance and operation budget, long-term and sustainable revenue sources is the goal to maintain and offer programs and opportunities for students across our K-12 unified district. As the board and the public is aware, being surrounded by neighboring districts that are high achieving, larger, and successful, that have additional funding sources of capital outlay overrides and maintenance and operations overrides, as well as each one of those districts having an active bond program that they work under, makes it challenging for us to keep pace with program offerings, salaries, staffing, and opportunities that could be offered elsewhere. With the current enrollment decline in Cave Creek Unified and with the timing of employee contracts related to budgets that need to go out in order for us to retain our wonderful employees, it's necessary that these decisions are made within our current existing budget constraints and made now in order for us to get contracts out. In an organization that values people, this is a challenging decision, folks, and I wish that this was not the case. I do look forward to gaining students back and gaining our enrollment back so we can hire more staff. Across our K-12 schools and programs, we have class sizes that range from 7 students in a classroom on one campus all the way up to 45 students in a classroom on that same campus. Horseshoe Trails Elementary School, as an example, has a Chinese immersion class that has 14 students in it, with an average of 25 students in 2 other same classes in the same grade level in a general education setting. In trying to fund more programs in an equitable manner and as stewards of taxpayer dollars, we have looked and will continue to look creatively on how to implement a consistent staffing model to ensure class sizes that are conducive to quality learning for all of our students. With that being said, having been here 8 or 9 weeks, I've already learned the love, the dedication, the resiliency, and the pride that the Cave Creek Unified School District has, and because of that, I know that there are better days ahead. Although public school funding is very complicated, we are trying to be transparent, we are trying to explain the why very carefully, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board, the staff, and the community for their support during this challenging time. Now, moving on. I would like to congratulate Jackie Paul. I talked to her mom the other day from Cactus Shadows High School class of 2021. Jackie was selected to perform in the 2021 Arizona Regional Choir, which is quite an honor. 3 Cactus Shadows High School band students are also participating in the Regional Band Festival. Congratulations to Chris Spilsbury on trumpet, Katie Rink on tenor saxophone, and Devin Pease on clarinet. I'd like to congratulate some of these students from Horseshoe Trails Elementary, our terrific kids of character for the month of February. These kids are nominated by their teachers, and 1 student is chosen per grade level each month for demonstrating strong character. I appreciate the Kiwanis Club of Carefree Arizona for sponsoring this recognition. So I have first names, but Kyle in preschool, Hunter in kindergarten, Harrison in 1st grade, Ella in 2nd grade, Tasso in 3rd grade, 4th grade is Emma, 4th grade is Cooper, 5th grade is Emma, and 6th grade is Gabby. Now, you guys know that we have cheer and we have spirit in our district. Not only did we have our Cactus Shadows cheer team win the state championship, also our Sonoran Trails middle school cheer team also became Arizona state champions. Let's give them a round of applause. President Hatcher and members of the board, just 2 or 3 more here. There's a lot to be proud of now. The following DECA students won the state competition and will be advancing to the International Career Development Conference competition. Congratulations to Chance Taskey, Alexis Ho, Sophia Barnetto, Katie Shine, Emily Chang, Ben Sidoti, Jacqueline Rusick, and Isabel Bridgman. If I pronounce the name, I really apologize. I've been practicing these today. So, also, in addition, our DECA instructor, Dr. Cynthia Bizard, was given the Rising Star Award. This award goes to new advisors who have shown potential for great leadership at the local level and whose impact reaches through the state of Arizona. These leaders are the future of DECA and will shape countless lives in the years to come. The recipients are selected by the Arizona Marketing Education Association. And finally and lastly, did you know that we have an esports team? Our Cactus Shadows High School has an esports team, and they played their first ever match against North Canyon High School in Paradise Valley and won. Esports is competing through video games. So the world is changing, folks. It's very exciting. They are led by teachers Jonathan Naylor and Janet Anderson, and the team members are Ryan Bartholomew, Richard Householder, Daniel Nobrega, Grayson Pazinski, Katie Shine, and Ian Walford. So it's very exciting to have these opportunities for our kids to be connected to the school, such as esports. And that is my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. Item 2, presentation of awards for schools and departments. 2.1, Black Mountain Elementary School Excellence Awards and School Presentation, presented by Dr. Court Monroe and Principal Matt Owsley.
Boy, I'm sorry, this is like the Dr. Monroe show, but this is the best part of these meetings, is these are the people that I really aspire to and look up to when we can recognize our students and our employees. So first, I appreciate Mr. Owsley, the wonderful principal at Black Mountain. Let's give him a round of applause. So, yeah, I heard there was a dunk tank, Mr. Owsley. I think I missed that, but maybe next time I'll get there. Okay, I got a good arm. So, I'd like to call up Stephanie Molinx. Come on up, Stephanie. Stephanie teaches 2nd grade at Black Mountain. If you were a 2nd grade student lucky enough to have Mrs. Molinx as your teacher, you could consider yourself among the luckiest kids in the world. Your teacher would be one of the first teachers on campus each day, making final preparations for a highly engaging day of learning. She would greet you at the door with a smile and ensure that your day was filled with support and love. You would find yourself engaged in so many experiences, all at just the right level. If you were lucky enough to have Mrs. Molinx as your teacher, you would be learning from a teacher who doesn't allow her mountain of experience to slow her down from learning something new. It's wonderful. Lucky for you, your teacher would be extremely dedicated, spending her evenings becoming an even better teacher. If your teacher were Mrs. Molinx, that would seem almost impossible to you. From bell to bell and beyond, your teacher, Mrs. Molinx, would be a model to all other teachers about what it means to do the job right. If only we could all be so lucky to have Mrs. Molinx as a teacher. Congratulations. We are mastering the pictures with the masks on, aren't we? You can see it in people's eyes when they smile. Okay, the next person I'd like to call up is Kylie Green. With over 20 years of dance experience and a bachelor's degree in dance education, Mrs. Green knows her subject area extremely well. It's amazing to see this translate into movement, vocabulary, and wonderful skill development in her students. With that being said, what is most impressive about Mrs. Green is her kind and compassionate heart, her positive attitude, and her ability to make even the most reluctant student find their confidence. Mrs. Green motivates and engages her students from preschool to sixth grade, finding ways to move the tiniest feet to the largest in creative and coordinated ways. If you ever have a chance to be on the Black Mountain campus and are lucky enough to observe in her classroom, you may just find it hard not to move your own feet. Congratulations. Okay, one more. So 4th grade student Tinley Zimmer. Where is Tinley at? right, you ready for me to brag about you? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Tinley has been enrolled at Black Mountain since kindergarten. Now in 4th grade, she has walked our halls for nearly 5 years with a smile on her face. Tinley's teachers speak highly of her maturity, work ethic, and kind and respectful nature. She works hard in class and is helpful to those around her. Tinley's positive influence doesn't stop at the classroom doors. Our Bobcat club manager states that she has become a role model for the younger kids, often taking on the role of a teacher. This means that Tinley is always in high demand, especially when the newest craze, Rainbow Loom, I'm not sure what that is, but especially when Rainbow Loom hit the Bobcat Club. If you walk into Bobcat Club on any given day, she would likely be sitting with the younger students, patiently helping them step by step. She's a delight and an amazing Bobcat through and through. Congratulations.
President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe, thank you for allowing me to stand up and talk for a moment tonight. In years past, I took this opportunity to speak about our amazing arts programs, highlighting major productions. I took the time to showcase exceptional events and focus on community connections. But this year, I felt the need to shine a spotlight in a different direction. Hold on, I swear, it won't work, but. All right, you get, it worked in my office, man. That either speaks to the size of this room or my lights in my room. All right.
We all know them. We grew up admiring them. We have our favorites, the ones we wanted to be like when we grew up. These superheroes often had a dramatic origin story, explaining how they attained their powers and why they've chosen their path in life. Each wielding unique skills and powers, we admire their strength and courage. They are smart and funny, solving problems, leaving just enough time for witty one-liners. They leap to new heights not thought possible. They could sling webs, defy gravity, and leave footprints for others to follow. We believed in their power. They often faced great adversity and overcame seemingly insurmountable odds. We watched as they selflessly sacrificed and proved that their true power came from within. Superheroes, saved lives, built a better future, doing what was right even when it was hard. They did this to make the world a better place and because they were needed, not for the recognition, often working behind a mask.
And I apologize. I showed the wrong video, so will you try?
We all know them.
Yeah, try that again.
We grew up admiring them. We have our favorites, the ones we wanted to be like when we grew up. Almost 1 year ago, a supervillain came to town, threatening the citizens, spreading fear and confusion. Forced into hiding, isolated, everyone searched for ways to connect with the outside world. Behind a screen, we tried to keep the human connection alive. Little did the supervillain know, located at a school in Scottsdale, Arizona, a team of teachers were putting on their masks. Each wielding unique skills and powers, we admired their strengths and courage. They are smart and funny, solving problems, leaving just enough time for witty one-liners. They leapt to new heights never thought before possible. They could sling webs, defy gravity, and leave footprints for others to follow. We believe in their power. They have faced great adversity and overcame seemingly insurmountable odds. We watch as they selflessly sacrifice and prove that their true power comes from within. Teachers, they save lives, build a better future, doing what is right even when it is hard. They do this to make the world a better place, and because they are needed. They do this not for the recognition, working behind masks. The battle has been longer than we had hoped, but just like all superhero tales, the day has been saved, and there is once again great hope in tomorrow.
So a little different than my normal presentation, but I just appreciate the time to be able to stand up here, and really the big thanks again, and I think I say something similar to this every year, really goes to my teachers and staff. I work with the absolute best, so I'm just proud to be able to stand up here and to be able to represent them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Owsley. Item 2.2, Carefree Cares Excellence Awards, presented by Dr. Court Monroe and Mayor Les Peterson.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I do want to recognize Mr. Owsley coming to this district in January. It was very apparent to me the very, very strong principles that we have at our schools that are student-focused, and they appreciate their staff. And so I once worked for a leader who said that nothing good happens at a school or in a department without a great leader. And so, again, Mr. Owsley, like our other principals and leaders, is very modest, but Black Mountain is fortunate to have someone to work shoulder to shoulder with his staff. So thank you, Mr. Owsley. All right, congratulations to the following Cave Creek Unified School District employees who have received the Carefree Cares Excellence Award for the first semester. Would you please come forward when you hear your name? I suppose we'll line up here, maybe. We'll do that. Antonella Nechtman from Black Mountain Elementary School. Lori Johnston from Desert Sun Academy. Sky Cooper from Desert Willow Elementary School. Alyssa Gould from Horseshoe Trails Elementary School. Kelly Hale from Lone Mountain Elementary School. Annette McQuain from Sonoran Trails Middle School. Congratulations. And Lori DeChico from Cactus Shadows High School. The awardees were honored at the March 2nd, 2021 Town of Carefree Council meeting. Mayor Peterson's here tonight. Come on up, Mayor Peterson, and join our staff for pictures. And then, Mayor, if you'd like to say something, we can do that. Let's get the picture first.
Good.
Okay, Mayor Peterson.
Thank you. And before each of you go back, we have a little something for you, but perhaps if I could say a couple words. President Hatcher and other members of the board, there are times when an organization such as this has to deal with conflicts, with various things that happen. I know the town of Carefree is coming through a very sad time right now. We have been working with a staff attorney for the last year and a half extensively. And I don't know if any of you recall, but roughly 3 to 4 weeks ago, there was a young man killed on the I-10 with the wrong-way driver coming, and that was his son. And father of a young family, 2-year-old, and it has been a real sad experience. But it is those kinds of things that makes us realize what is important in our lives. And these people and others are those who teach our youth, who work with them, who teach them what it is like, what the values are, what learning is, that will stay with them their lifetime. So we in the foothills and Carefree in particular would like to extend our sincere thanks for all of your efforts, for everything that you have done, your love of our children, and give you 2 things. One, a Carefree Cares pin. Doctor has one on his lapel. And if I might give one to each of you. thank you. And also, and this will show you how much it means to all of us, the town of Carefree is a notary public station, and we notarize documents for people at sometimes the most awkward times, and we collect money for doing that, and we donate that money to charity. We can think of nothing more significant than to put these into gift certificates to share and give to each one of you and encourage you, have a meal out, do something meaningful to you and your family. So I would like to thank you and give you a gift certificate from the town of Carefree.
Congratulations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Congratulations to our teachers, and thank you, Mayor Peterson. Item 3, public comments. We have quite a few folks out there, so this will be the time that if you all would like to leave, go ahead, and we will switch out. So it's going to take us a few minutes, y'all. Thank you. Thank you. I think so. The top, if it's stapled, the top person is speaking only from the stapled group.
Top person is speaking only, but these people also have to be called up. I'm not here, she doesn't have to.
Oh, I see. She's speaking for however many minutes, as long as these people are here.
Right.
Okay.
And we're down to a minute.
Yeah. So I need to tell Mr. Leedy how many minutes, okay.
Right, or you can tell them.
He's not, will he know, does he have a list of how long somebody gets to speak if they have like 4 people, you know?
He's the second one, so
So this is gonna be about an hour, well, more than an hour.
There's 60? I forgot my water, but I
people have deferred their time. So how does that work? What's gonna happen is Beth is gonna tell you how many minutes they'll have. So she's gonna call, for instance, the first one is just 1 and a half. The second one has 4 people.
Oh, so.
So she's gonna call them all up and then tell you they have 4 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Are we ready, Ms. Scotto? Okay. All right, we're going to begin now. Because we have public comments, I need to read an admonition. This is item 3, public comments. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are, number 1, board member may respond if there is direct criticism of the board member. Number 2, board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or number 3, board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. So, have they been informed that they have, how this is going to run? Okay. So, because of the number of speakers, we will have 1 minute for each speaker. Some of you have deferred to one person, and so we've stapled those together. So if there are 4, for example, stapled together, that your designated spokesperson will speak for 4 minutes. And Mr. Leedy, I'll let you know how many minutes per card. And I apologize ahead of time. I'm quite sure I'm going to mispronounce a lot of names. Our first speaker is Nicole Swaner. And you have 1 minute.
Good job, you got the name right. 1 for 1 so far. All right, I'll talk really quick. Hi, I'm Nicole. I've been a French immersion parent for 3 years now. When looking at the schools where I wanted to send my daughter, the immersion program, STEM, and small class sizes were the driving factors. When I'm looking at the immersion programs in the district, the French program stood out to me, as many companies have difficulty finding employees that are fluent in French and English. I was excited when kindergarten started and how excited my daughter was to come home and share what she was learning in French. She was engaged in learning, and the teacher was communicating with the parents on the topics the kids were studying. Unfortunately, the teacher did not finish out the year, and the kids had a sub finish the year. When the sub started, I no longer had an excited child coming home and telling me what she learned and no longer spoke French at home. With reassurance from the school, I was hopeful for the next school year. As you can probably tell, that year ended the same, with the French teacher gone and a sub back in the classroom. At the end of the second year, I was ready to take my daughter out and be taught by the same teacher for a full year on a... I did not talk fast enough. I apologize.
Thank you. Mr. Leedy, the next one will be for 4 minutes. Jamie Boyer, you're speaking for Marissa Speed, Ellen Holben, and I'm assuming these folks are in here. Kristen Clayton?
Good evening, President Hatcher, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Monroe, and community. My name is Jamie, and I have 3 children that attend my Boundary School, Desert Sun Academy, in grades 1, 3, and 5. My 5th grade daughter's in French immersion, and her class is the Pioneer Group. She wanted to be here tonight to fight for the very immersion program that she is so passionate about. However, as a mother, I need her to be a 10-year-old little girl and protect her from the stress and negative environment that has been created from the decisions Dr. Monroe is making. It is my job to fight for her education as well as yours. How is it that after 5 weeks in CCUSD, the Governing Board approved his plan to wipe out the entire teaching and learning department at the district office and cut numerous other staff and teaching jobs? He hadn't even been here long enough to know anything about their jobs or this community. Specials teachers were cut, language teachers were cut, and immersion programs were cut and minimized because of staffing reductions. Did he think it would be easy to replace the immersion team who works tireless hours to find international exchange teachers, train them, deal with visas, all while putting education and curriculum of our students first? There are currently 700 students in immersion across 3 elementary schools and 1 middle school, which using district calculations equates to $4.9 million. Dr. Monroe put out a letter that claims the immersion program costs $2.3 million. So why the discrepancy? It's a known fact that most universities require 2 to 3 years of language for admission, and in many high schools, a bare minimum of world language classes are offered. Our pre-K through 12th grade world language pathways had set us apart and made our district a national model. Now we are taking away the ability of our students to be fluent in a second language, to increase their critical thinking skills and test scores, to develop a multicultural perspective towards life and become the next generation of globally minded leaders. We live in a world with a global economy where the students from other countries that will be competing with our kids already speak multiple languages. If two graduates are finalists for a job and one is bilingual, the odds are the bilingual will get the offer due to the soft skills. Dr. Monroe claims that we're only attracting 53% of our in-boundary students. Now we don't have anything to offer them. Cave Creek has nothing to set it apart from competing districts as well as private and charter schools. Why haven't stakeholders been notified of this $4 million deficit under this last superintendent? Did the enrollment stability grant of 2.3 help at all? Hasn't Dr. Monroe been in education long enough to have the tools and resources to know how to attract a greater number of in-boundary students? Get the backing of your families and teachers, and they will market for you. It is my understanding that many of the emerging families will not be back next year as a result of Dr. Monroe's actions. He's allowing the principals to take the blame for his decisions and directing parents who contact him to contact their principal. Why do we have to come to a board meeting or to be heard? Why hasn't he answered our phone calls and emails? Doing so could help Monroe understand the things that matter to so many of us in Cape Creek, which is what a new superintendent should be doing. Unless he has his own agenda, and it's true that he's not interested in listening. To quote Dr. Monroe, as superintendent, I express my commitment to doing the work by engaging and listening to stakeholders so that we can continue the many great things already going on. He just lost the trust of the family of 700.
You all right?
I don't know.
Good job. I got your paper. Here. Come with me. We're going to walk over here, okay?
want to finish? I'll put it back, okay? She has 20 seconds left on the clock, okay? Okay.
Hasn't Dr. Monroe been in education long enough to have the tools and resources to know how to attract a greater number of in-boundary students? Getting the backing of your families and teachers, they will market for you. It is my understanding that many of the immersion families will not be back next year as a result of Dr. Monroe's actions. He is allowing the principals to take the blame for his decisions and directing parents to contact him, or not to contact him, but to contact their principal. Keep going. How do you figure? She got 21 seconds. Should I finish? Or? Okay. Doing so could have helped Dr. Monroe understand the things that
Ma'am, let me interrupt you for a minute. The audience needs to remain silent. Thank you.
May I finish?
How much more do you have? Like,
Just right here,
okay.
that last page. Doing so could have helped Dr. Monroe understand the things that matter to so many of us in Cave Creek, which is what a new superintendent should be doing, unless he has his own agenda and truly is not interested in listening. To quote Dr. Monroe, as superintendent, I express my commitment to begin the work by engaging and listening to stakeholders so that we can continue the many great things already going on. He just lost the trust of families of 700 students, 4.9 million. Seems the deficit may increase as a result of his decisions. What then? To the governing board, you have the ability to fix what is broken. I respectfully request that you reconsider the decisions, including the RIFs in 5.2, that have been made until you and Dr. Monroe have listened to your stakeholders. My commitment to my children is a high-quality education that includes preparing them for a global economy. CCUSD was on the right track, and unless this is corrected, it will continue down the wrong track and not be attracted to families like ours. Please be sure to really understand the decisions that your one and only employee is making. Thank you.
Okay, and let me say thank you to the audience. The reason why I let her go on was because of the confusion, and she reread a portion that had been read already. So we'll stick to the time going forward. The next person is Angela Robertson, and Mr. Leedy, she will have 3 minutes.
Hello again, President Hatcher, board members, Dr. Monroe. I'm Angie Robertson, proud and passionate parent at Horseshoe Trails Elementary. I have 2 boys in the immersion program and 2 more potential students. My boys are all advanced for their 8 years, and I've been grateful for the immersion program to give them extra challenge. We all know that bright students who get bored tend to cause trouble and not achieve their full potential. As stated in the district's immersion brochure, language learning correlates with higher academic achievement on standardized test measures, close quote. One of the important metrics used to gauge a school's and a district's success. Our district is also striving to improve capture rate and enrollment. Eliminating immersion will not achieve these goals. Here's the same graph that Mr. Leedy will be presenting later and has presented previously. Let's zoom in so that we can understand the effects that immersion will have. These are the last 3 years. But this final data point is out of date. The enrollment data from January 31st shows that the enrollment is actually above, is actually 5,131. This reassures us that the capture rate has not dropped below 50% during the pandemic, unless drastic spending cuts may be sufficient to meet financial goals. However, the number of students likely to leave Horseshoe Trails if immersion is eliminated is staggering. As you know, we surveyed immersion families at Horseshoe Trails to understand the potential impact on enrollment. These percentages translate into at least 100 and potentially more than 200 students likely to leave Horseshoe Trails without Mandarin immersion. 63 of Mandarin immersion students come from outside of the district, and they have no reason to stay in CCUSD without Mandarin immersion. 11 immersion students are at Horseshoe Trails on a variance, and they are also more likely to leave the school to the district to pursue Mandarin. In fact, just 3 days after the announcement, neighboring Mandarin immersion schools report that more than 50 students have already filled out open enrollment forms and more pending. A loss of 100 to 200 students at Horseshoe Trails would result in an immediate decline in the capture rate of 1 to 2%, which is twice as bad as the current trend. Eliminating Mandarin immersion at Horseshoe Trails will not improve the district's success. It will result in poor student performance and lower enrollment. President Hatcher, board members, please table the reductions in force at Horseshoe Trails and reinstate Christina Lattis, who's done so much for us. Let us all take some time to collaborate with all of you, Mr. Leedy, and with the parents who are so dedicated and willing to contribute whatever we need to maintain this program. Let our children continue this bold endeavor they've begun to learn Mandarin. Thank you.
The next name is Richard Bailey. 1 minute.
Good evening. Should I start?
Yes, please.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Dr. Monroe, board members, and the community. I'm a linguist for the government. I spent part of my life as a child in Morocco and France. There was multiple articles in the Wall Street Journal about the certifications I was involved in Denver, Colorado, for interpreters and translators of all languages. And language acquisition at a certain age is vital because there's a threshold. If it's missed, you can never catch up. So I drive from Scottsdale to Desert Sun Academy, where I have my daughter. And for me, there would be no other reason but the French program. And I brought all my certifications for the government, my federal certifications and everything for all the languages I've done. And I'm just flabbergasted. It's a global world, and we need these programs.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jenny Utterback. 1 minute. Jenny Utterback.
Sorry. Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, and Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. Our family moved to Cave Creek from out of state almost 5 years ago. We currently have 4 children enrolled at Horseshoe Trails Elementary in grades K1, 4, and 6. All of my children are in the Mandarin immersion program at HTES. Our kids love their teachers. Unfortunately, the U.S. has had a massive increase in xenophobia and anti-Asian hate crimes due to the pandemic. I am especially grateful that my children are building positive relationships with their Mandarin language teachers, learning about Chinese culture and developing a greater sense of global awareness and empathy. I feel strongly that making the choice to invest in a language program will help our children to be better engaged global citizens and leaders, something that our world is in great need of at this time. I hope the board accurately represents the interests of the community today and votes not to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Krishna Saunders. I'm not quite sure. Okay, and Mr. Leedy, this is 5 minutes. And so you are representing Ibby Eichmann, Ben Lewis, Heather Lewis, and Abby Miller, correct?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I am Christy Saunders, proud and passionate parent, and I am one of the open enrolled families here at Horseshoe Trails. Dr. Monroe, you have emphasized the importance as a district to improve enrollment and increase the 50% capture rate within the community, and that is exactly what the immersion program does. I, along with the 63 other open enrolled students, 14 of which we personally brought in, would not be here if it were not for the Mandarin immersion program. Without Mandarin, we will leave and take with us the immense financial contributions that we make. As mentioned, the Mandarin families were 83% of the top contributors in our December fundraiser at Horseshoe Trails. The 63 open enrolled families alone generate $378,000. If you take the numbers, 63 times $6,000 per student given from the state of revenue. This pays for the $360,000 cost for the program with $18,000 net gains. How does that make fiscal sense to cut this? Not to mention the incremental losses that cannot be measured on paper, such as the loss of community trust, the fear of losing other programs being cut, and the bad press throughout social media and in neighboring communities. One of our instructional pillars is supposed to be advanced world languages. With Mandarin being the second largest language, it's considered by global economists one of the best to learn in relationship to business. How are we eliminating this opportunity? Right here in our own backyard, Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company is slated to build a $35 billion, that's with a B, billion-dollar facility in North Phoenix. 4 more Taiwanese companies are expected to follow. They are well known for making investments within infrastructure and education in communities around them. This is our one opportunity. They're starting in September. They've already begun the process. I hope you hear our voices and allow us as stakeholders our right to have a say in this. This room and this community behind me is full of well-funded, well-connected problem solvers that have all offered up their services, many of us free of charge. I appreciate the gesture today to reinstate part of the program, but I know as a community, we can do better. I propose we sit down together to come up with an equitable solution for everyone. I want to hear what's going on. I want to hear what's happening. We want full transparency. I am open to propose solutions, and I am willing and able to help, whether it be financially or with my time or other members. Hatcher, governing board members Hatcher, Fortney, Busby, Brown, Thatcher, can you at minimum, at the very minimum, delay or if not overturn the decision to RIF the Mandarin teachers so that we can discuss this and come to an equitable solution for all? Thank you.
The next speaker is Jennifer Ori, who is also speaking for Sharon Janowski. So, Mr. Leedy, 2 minutes.
Good evening, President Hatcher, governing board members, CCUSD staff, and community. I am a parent of 2 daughters in the Spanish immersion program. With disturbing news of budget cuts of the immersion and world language programs, I'm most concerned for the future of their education. I have a freshman at Cactus Shadows and a 6th grader at Desert Willow. My girls have 2 addresses. Their dad lives at the CCUSD boundaries, and I live outside the Cave Creek district. For the past 8 years, I have been Uber mom simply for the immersion program. Numerous others have enrolled their children in the Cave Creek schools for the same reason. My Cactus Shadows freshman has been in Spanish immersion since pre-K and is currently enrolled in AP Spanish. In order to complete her program of studies, she is planning on taking the AP test and take Spanish capstone for her immersion. AP test and take Spanish capstone for immersion students her senior year. She already has a college and career path in mind utilizing her Spanish. I feel strongly it would be most detrimental for the program to be cut and unable to retain our international teachers. These are teachers of record, not additional teachers to staff. It is common knowledge and supported by national research, students in language immersion programs score higher than their monolingual peers. They get along better with students who are different from them. They graduate with confidence and resilience because they are aware they have a special skill. I'm asking you to take into thoughtful consideration the outcome of the fall of the world language programs, which include the schools that offer immersion. Thank you for your time and service to our school district and our students. I am now reading on someone else's behalf. I'm a Cave Creek community member and grandmother of Spanish immersion students advocating for the world language programs, especially the immersion model, which are at the very core and brand of our district.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jigar Shah, and I apologize if I mispronounce names. 1 minute, Mr. Leedy.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. I'm a father of 2 kids in kindergarten Mandarin immersion, just started. I live in PV School District, and I come to a CCUSD school. Why? Why does someone do that? It's because of Horseshoe Trails. The reputation in Desert Ridge, North Phoenix, PV, is that Horseshoe Trails is amazing, thanks to Christina Lattis, Mr. P, and the staff. Now, when I called, because now I'm thinking of re-enrolling them in somewhere else, when I called Scottsdale, the school there, Desert Canyon, Whispering Wind, and PV, they said to me, Cave Creek's loss is our gain. They were excited. That's the unintended result that you have done. So next year, I encourage your finance team, your FP&A team, to look at those enrollment numbers as they go down, because we would be leaving. Now, let me end with, Dr. Monroe, I know you spent some time in Utah. 20% of the schools, public schools in Utah, are dual language immersion. I'm going to finish. Are dual language immersion. Nebo School District.
Sir.
People from all over the place in Nebo School District go to Sage Creek Elementary School to learn Mandarin immersion.
Sir.
I understand that you are ignoring your current constituents and stakeholders. Please reach out to your past colleagues, because they invested in Mandarin a lot more than you are.
The next speaker is Francesca Garless or Careless. 1 minute, Mr. Leedy. Is she here? Okay. On to the next one then. Holly Weddle, and she is speaking for Vicki Dean, Jenny McAvoy, Daniel Saunders, and Laura Mancuso. 5 minutes, Mr. Leedy.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. My name is Holly Weddle. I'm a parent of a Horseshoe Trail 2nd grader, and I have a 4-year-old. We value your time and have worked together to consolidate several points that myself and others will speak to. The points we are making are shared by our community and not just the person stating them. Our kids have been through enough. I am proud of our district for what they've done to get our schools open safely. It's something I'm very proud advocate about. And just so you know, me and my daughter handmade 70 masks that were embroidered with Stallion Strong for our teachers so that we could open our schools safely. We care so much about our teachers, we care so much about our students, and we care so much about our community. As parents, all of us understand the need and the importance of consistency and stability on our kids' lives. And this pandemic has really shaken things up, as we all know. And that's one big reason why I'm glad that we've kept the schools open safely. That being said, by changing the immersion program at Horseshoe Trails, what you are doing is changing the way our kids are learning every day, year after year. You're upending all of these key routines that we all know are good for child development. Just essentially, all of us as parents just know that. As a stakeholder of this community, this is the most difficult reality that I face. This is the biggest thing to me and our community. But that being said, I realize that you guys have financial concerns at the school district, and you've published a lot of information that I have reviewed extensively. I am a retired CPA with education and career experience in governmental accounting. I get the financial issues the district is faced with. We are a very lean school, and the district has to make cost-cutting decisions, but because we are so lean, these decisions are very complex, and they cannot be straight line, and they cannot be short-term. You have to think long-term, and you have to think strategic. And there is a lot of ways that we will present to. We had an order, but that got messed up, but we will present to a lot of aspects that have not been considered. All I'm asking is that we are heard. Please hear me when I say that I want to be part of the Cave Creek Unified School District. But how can I if we are not being heard and being engaged in reasonable discussions to further the entire community? This isn't just about Horseshoe. This isn't just about immersion. The financial decisions that this would impact is going to affect the whole community. And if you don't believe me, let's talk. I'm asking the board not to approve the reduction in force for our language immersion teachers. Furthermore, I am asking the board to encourage the superintendent to engage in meaningful conversation with our community to get at the right answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Lindsay Edwards. 1 minute.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Dr. Monroe, communities, and staff members. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lindsay Edwards. I have 5 boys, ages 11 through 3. I currently have 3 enrolled at Horseshoe Trails Mandarin Immersion Program. And coming this fall, I have a kindergartner enrolled. I would like to ask all of you to reconsider cutting this program. My children are very devastated. My 5th, 4th, and 2nd grader have thrived in Mandarin and are extremely devastated to hear that they are losing some of their favorite teachers. The teachers within this program are what have made our experience at Horseshoe Trails amazing. Without them and this program, we have no reason to stay. We came and stayed at Horseshoe Trails solely for this program, and as much as we love the staff and community, we will no longer continue here if this beloved program is cut. Sadly, CCUSD will lose an extremely involved family of 5 children who are well-behaved and good classroom citizens. I am fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mom and will drive 2 hours, so be it, if that's what I have to do to give my kids a good education. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jenny Forbes.
As a Desert Willow parent, my heart breaks for the immersion families at Horseshoe Trails. To find out that a program that families have been dedicated to for years to be cut, also that we can cram more students into a classroom under a teacher that is already stretched thin, is devastating. We have committed to this program since our first child entered kindergarten. We have built a house in this community. We have turned down jobs out of state in order to stay in this program. Number 1 reason we did not move is to stay in this program. We were told that the school budget should never be an issue because Cave Creek still needs to educate our children and have an immersion teacher rather than an English teacher, and it's not a material difference. We have the resources within Cave Creek community to continue these programs. Dr. Monroe and board, please guide us to know what needs to happen to continue the language immersion and all existing programs.
Thank you. The next speaker, Sandra Law or
Dr. Monroe and CCUSD Board. My name is Sandy Lacey, and I am the proud parent of 2 Spanish immersion kids at Desert Willow Elementary. I am also currently serving on the PTO Executive Board as this year's Vice President and have served PTO for several years prior in varying roles. In fact, last school year, I was part of organizing the 20th birthday party celebration for DWES, which celebrated our great school and our groundbreaking immersion program, the first of its kind in the entire state when it formed in 2003. The celebration was attended by Dr. Burdick, Dr. Miller, and several former DWES employees, including board member Hatcher. We even had a visitor from the AZ State Education Department, Mrs. Kate Wright, who was blown away by our school and our immersion program. The fact that we are here today fighting for this program is almost inconceivable. Like many other parents here, we moved to CCUSD for the language programs. 60% of students at DWES are currently in immersion, with many others on the wait list hoping to get a spot. DWS is a tight-knit community of engaged parents, as is all of CCUSD.
Thank you. Next speaker, David Lynn.
Good evening, President Hatcher, board members. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'd like to just first point out the CCUSD logo here. It says community-inspired, globally prepared. I would argue that getting rid of the Mandarin immersion program would go against the ideals to which CCUSD has held or is trying to uphold. It was a disappointment to hear that a lot of this decision-making was done without any input from the stakeholder parents and also from the students who are actually in the program. I'm the proud and passionate father of 2 current Mandarin immersion program students in Horseshoe Trails. And I beg that you actually restore the integrity of the program. I also want to point out to you the brochure on your World Language Immersion Program. Actually, there's an e-brochure on that website. If you pull open the first page, it shows that U.S. employers want, number 1, Spanish speakers, Chinese speakers, and French speakers. So I ask that you maintain the integrity of all the World Language Immersion Programs.
Thank you. Next speaker, Rodney Theodore, who is also speaking for Chris Onstein. Heather Moman, I'm sorry, people, I'm mispronouncing your names. Ruth Ramsauer. So 4 minutes, Mr. Leedy. Go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Monroe and board members. My name is R.J. Theodore. I'm the parent of 2 children in the immersion program at Horseshoe Trails, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. First, I want to thank you for listening to the community. I know the community came to you before when we were desperate to get the schools reopened, and you did that. So very much appreciate that, and I hope you listen to us tonight regarding the Mandarin immersion program. While some of my comments are specific to my family, I know they would include many of the families that especially don't call Horseshoe Trails their home school. We're out of district. We were originally in the Scottsdale School District, and then we now reside in the PV School District. My children have been in Mandarin immersion since preschool, and I know a number of the families here have had their children start out at Global Minds around 100th Street and Mountain View, way over there. I've had my oldest daughter at Arizona Language Prep for multiple years until she decided she didn't want to take Spanish and Mandarin. She wanted to focus on Mandarin. So she came to us. We looked at the programs, we looked at the district, we saw the commitment by the district, and we saw the program. So we brought them to Horseshoe Trails. To be honest, we have no reason to stay without the program. We don't live close, and we can find another program. But the program's been fantastic, the school's been fantastic, the teachers have been fantastic. We've been very happy. We've never picked schools based on proximity. We've never picked schools based on whether we're in the district. We've picked them because they are the best schools. And we did our homework, and Horseshoe Trails was the best school for Mandarin immersion. A lot of credit to the people who set that up, and I'm concerned that it would be taken down. Like most, if not all of the parents here, they started their children in Mandarin immersion because they wanted to give their children an advantage. I won't be shy about saying that. If you meet a lot of the kids that are in this program, and hopefully you take the time to talk to them, these are incredible children, just incredible. The confidence, the pride, the sense of accomplishment, the joy they get in being able to speak Mandarin outside of school, any opportunity they have. I don't see children that excited to discuss or use what they learn in school outside of school, but Mandarin is one of those particular things. To say, hey, you know what, we're here, we just want to get our kids, to graduate from high school, that's not this group of kids, and that's not this group of parents. We expect and look forward to so much more out of our children. So giving them an advantage for college admission, scholarships, or in career pursuits down the road, that's really what we want. My kids were heartbroken when they heard the program was ended, especially my 11-year-old. And what she came to us and said is, Mom, Dad, can you just pay for the teachers? And we said, like any parent would do, we'll see. Which basically takes us, you know, me at least, to my next topic is, what is the financial shortfall? If the decision is purely a financial one, I'd certainly like to know it. You know, 2 years ago when, you know, the PTO needed money, we cut a check for $8 grand. Didn't break the bank. And I know a lot of the parents here that I've talked to, these are exceptional parents. They're so impressive. They would all step up to support the program if given the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
The next speaker, Nancy Ingo. She is speaking for Diane Kitlika and Elizabeth Ferrari. So 3 minutes, Mr. Leedy.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board members, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. My name is Nancy Ngo. I'm a mother of a kindergarten student, a second grader, and a fourth grader, all currently open enrolled at Horseshoe Trails. When my oldest daughter was in preschool, my husband and I looked all over the valley for a school that would meet our family's specific education needs, regardless of what district it fell in. After touring Horseshoe Trails, we immediately signed the immersion commitment contract and enrolled our daughter. We knew the Mandarin immersion program would not only provide the perfect challenge for our gifted learner, but also provide a cultural connection to our children's Chinese heritage. We signed the same commitment contract for our other 2 children when they open enrolled. When my youngest entered kindergarten last year, we finally had all 3 children together at Horseshoe Trails, and therefore we uprooted from our home, which we lived in for the past 15 years, in order to move closer to the school. The announcement that Mandarin was being cut was a complete shock to our family and to the other school stakeholders. We are passionate about our children's education and do not want them to lose their foundation that they have been building and their opportunity for further growth. The short timeline and the lack of transparency on the future of the program has left us with very limited options. However, we are highly invested in our children's education and will seek out another Chinese immersion program in a different district if this one is cut. This global program should be the feather in your cap. It produces academically gifted students who demonstrate more cognitive flexibility, which translates to higher standardized test scores. It not only maximizes their learning potential, but it also starts preparing them to become leaders in a globalized world. Without this character and confidence building program, enrollment in the school will continue to decline. We should be promoting it, not cutting it. I'm asking you to please reinstate the World Language Coordinator and vote to not approve RIFs of the Mandarin teachers and let the stakeholders have a chance to exhaust all the possibilities, whether it be through tuition costs, which we are willing to pay, or through donations, grants, or private funding. I am confident that with our strong community support and global-minded parents, we can venture solutions and find a way to keep the Mandarin immersion program at Horseshoe Trails. Please show the community that you are willing to invest in our children's future and the future of CCUSD. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Nate Weddle. Speaking for Dan Jurjewicz, Eric Waldo, Winnie Sarabana, Connie Waldo, Anna Nicolazzi, and Gretchen Amorosa. 7 minutes.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board members, Superintendent Dr. Monroe, Mr. Tim Leedy, and staff and community. My name is Nate Weddle, the father of a second grader. at Horseshoe Trails who has been enrolled in the Mandarin Immersion program starting in kindergarten. I also have a daughter beginning kindergarten this coming fall, and she is enrolled in the program. I am also heavily involved in the Cave Creek community, acting as the director of the U8 Girls Desert Foothills Soccer Club League, in addition to coaching both of my daughter's teams. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and to express my thoughts and concerns regarding the proposed termination of the program. I understand the budget deficit facing the district resulting from the pandemic and the challenges that lie ahead, but the termination of the program is not in the best interest of the district in either the short term or long term. The decrease in enrollment resulting from the termination and decreased funding of these students will far outweigh the cost savings in the short term and long term. It'll also impact non-immersion students negatively as a result of larger class sizes across all grades. The result of a survey outlined earlier show that conservatively, approximately 100 students are more than likely to leave the district and go elsewhere next school year. This will be a decrease in funding of approximately $595,000 conservatively for the 21-22 school year, with a cost savings of only approximately $300K. The impact long-term is a decrease in funding of $6.3 million over 13 years. That would be the number of years a student is enrolled in the program, kindergarten through 12th grade. If you don't believe the survey, listen to this. Of the 235 students enrolled in the program, 63 students, or 33%, are out of district, and 11 or 5% are variances, meaning Horseshoe Trails is not the school they are zoned for within the district. It is reasonable to assume these students are attending Horseshoe Trails specifically for the program. If there is no program, they will leave. In fact, the open enrollment for the Mandarin Immersion programs in other districts has increased 26, 25, and 2 students since last Thursday, March 4th, 2021, for Desert Canyon, Gavilan Peak, and Desert Sage, respectively. In addition of the $32K that has been fundraised by the Horseshoe Trails PTO for the 2021 school year, 71% of contributions were immersion families. In fact, 83% of the top contributors were immersion families. As you know, this money is used for many things other than the immersion program and allows for the school to provide programs that they otherwise would not be able to provide. This shows the immersion family's willingness to contribute financially to the district and understand the need for additional funding, such as through a bond override, which is very important right now for the district. It also highlights that the impact of the loss of these families will be a bigger financial impact to the district than just the lost student funding. Further, I think the immersion programs are great opportunities to increase the enrollment of the district. Thousands of districts across the country are beginning to add immersion programs to their districts as they see the long-term benefits to the students through the increased quality of education provided. Why would the district, who is a catalyst of these programs, eliminate one program and leave the rest hanging in the balance at a time when we should be exploiting this advantage? In fact, I am not sure if you are aware, but the program had a lottery for kindergarten enrollment for the first time in program history for the 2021 school year. Let's work on increasing enrollment through the marketing of the programs we have invested valuable time in, rather than eliminating them, especially when the impact of eliminating the program to the district is an increase in the deficit. We as parents are extremely invested in our children's education and deserve the opportunity to be involved in decisions that have such a dramatic and negative impact on that. What we should be concentrating our efforts on is why we have chosen to spend $10,812 to educate a student attending Desert Sun Academy, but have elected to only spend $6,411 to educate a student attending Horseshoe Trails. How is that equitable? At the end of the day, you and the board answer to us, the stakeholders, and we demand that we be heard. In closing, I ask that the board vote no to approve the reduction of force of the Mandarin immersion teachers. I also ask that the reinstatement of the Director of World Languages position be placed on the agenda for a future board meeting. This position is crucial to the success of the language immersion programs going forward, and the failure to consider reinstating this position is a clear indication of your lack of support for any language immersion program. Thank you for your time. I revert it back.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ava Fox.
Hi, my name is Ava Fox, and I'm in 4th grade. I've been
Ava.
in Chinese immersion at Horseshoe Trails for 5 years now, and I really enjoy it. When I first started immersion in kindergarten, I thought it was hard. Then as the years went on, I have come to see that it's way easier than I thought. I continue to learn more with each new teacher, and I feel like I have grown a lot in my ability to speak, read, and understand Mandarin. We learn Chinese songs and try to speak Chinese stories. It is so much fun to speak to each other in a different language. I love Chinese immersion and I hate to see it go. Please help us save the Mandarin immersion program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for speaking to us. Next speaker is Annalise Saunders, and she's also speaking for Erica Cyber. 2 minutes. Make sure you speak really, really loud into that microphone.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, community, and staff members. I'm Annalise Saunders, and I'm in 4th grade. The Chinese immersion program is an amazing experience. I've learned about the Chinese culture, and I've made lifelong friends. Learning another language opens the door to new opportunities. If you stop this program, you're taking away my future and all my hard work. You're taking away my friends because we'll change schools. You're taking away my teachers that I care so deeply about. This year has been so hard for us all, so please don't make it harder. The good news is you have a chance to fix this today. Please keep the Mandarin immersion program. 我是 Annalise Saunders， 我在4年级，中国曾经是可称是一次了不起的体验。我了解着中国文化，并且结了必胜的朋友，学习另一种语言，打开了新计划的大门。如果您停止该计划，您将失去我的前途，会我所有的新工作。今年度我们所有人来说都是如此艰难，所有起步要再艰难了。好消息是您今天有机会接触是问题，钱包里普通话程序。谢谢你 ，Thank you for your time.
Thank you. What was that Mandarin for what you had said in English? Thank you. Next speaker, Andrew Kane, who is also speaking for Jennifer Kane, Dara Browning, and Jason Stage, something like that. 4 minutes.
Perfect. Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, fellow community and staff. I'm a born and raised Phoenician. I've lived in the East Valley and in the West Valley. I went to Brophy College Preparatory and then on to Arizona State, as you can tell by my face mask. And I used to drive up a bumpy 2-lane road when I was a child in the late 80s with my grandparents to have breakfast in the creek. 30 years later, I'm married to my wife, Jennifer, sitting right behind me, who is Chinese, and herself attended an immersion program in her native Canada. And we made the conscious decision to the next generation of our family by blending our heritage and enrolling our daughter in the Mandarin immersion program at Horseshoe Trails nearly 3 years ago. We do not live in district, but this community is our home. This recent decision to abruptly end Mandarin immersion has dealt an incredible blow to us and our commitment to have our daughter Harper achieve at the highest level while being grounded in her roots. Aside from the decision to have our child, this was likely the most important choice in our lives to date. It's no secret, we live in a less than diverse area in a highly sensitive world. It opens us up to criticisms, whether they are perceived or real. The World Language Program in Cave Creek Unified School District is designed to be a symbol of our commitment to raising global citizens living in a global economy. Not to mention the U.S. government identifies Mandarin as a critical need language to support national security in the future. Making decisions of this magnitude without stakeholder involvement is a dangerous flirtation, particularly if finances are the primary driver. It is irresponsible and is not reflective of the accountability that we expect from our elected officials. A few questions for you. Do any of you have children in the Mandarin Immersion Program? And for that matter, do any of you currently have children at Horseshoe Trails? And to Dr. Monroe, your finalist question regarding fiscal responsibility for the superintendent's role in Maricopa County Unified in 2018, you stated, transparency is very important. Good communication with the school boards and the parents is very important. It's like a foreign language, finance. Expenditures are always aligned with goals. Are we just spending money because we've had this program for years? We need to be creative in Arizona. We need to be creative with our revenue. Where has this position manifested itself in this decision? This program serves a goal. It is not a sacred cow that needs to be slain. It is high performing and creates not only high performing students, but provides aspirational value for the district. If our goal is to support the 95% graduation rate in the CCUSD, then this program checks every box. Though I thank Mr. Pettinato for his efforts in bridging the gap, we fall short. We were placated this afternoon with a strategically timed alternative via outdial that does nothing to address a true solution. In fact, it bordered on patronizing. Additionally, while this proposal may maintain a loose connection to Mandarin language and that of Chinese culture, it will do nothing to repair the rift in our community that the permanence of eliminating the current program will cause. Given the nature of these announcements and a violation of the promise to involve stakeholders, I respectfully ask that the decision for a RIF of Mandarin immersion teachers, Christina Lottis, and the future of Mandarin immersion be tabled pending further creative exploration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Kathy Yee. Kathy Yee.
Good evening, President Hatcher, governing board members, Superintendent Monroe, community, and staff members. I'm appealing to delay the reduction in force related to cutting the Mandarin Immersion Program. Like many other families, we live out of district and purposely chose to enroll our son at Horseshoe Trails for the Mandarin Immersion Program. Immersion is the most effective way to learn a language, and research shows that bilingual students typically perform better than monolingual students on tasks that call for divergent thinking and problem solving. This translates into higher academic achievement and test scores, which is often how academic excellence is measured. We've been repeatedly informed that Horseshoe Trails is a national blue ribbon school and has received a high number of accolades. And the first thing that was quoted on the site was when recognized for this award that we are a Mandarin Chinese world language school. Given that statement, you'd be taking away the primary program that distinguishes Horseshoe Trails from many other schools in the state and nation. As a stakeholder in this community, I'm asking the board to please reverse your decision and continue the Mandarin Immersion Program. I hope the board accurately represents the interests of the community today and votes to not approve the reduction in force to the Mandarin teachers.
Thank you. The next speaker is Robert Young, who is also speaking for Josh Edelstein, Scott Reginier, Travis Stanford, and Mark Pruntz or Prides. 5 minutes.
Can I remove this? Very good. Got my little clock here, so I'll make sure I'm staying on time. All right, thank you. Governing Board President Hatcher, board members, Dr. Monroe, Mr. Leedy. I'm a parent of a fifth grader at Horseshoe Trails who's been in the immersion program since she was a kindergartner for 6 years. We're very invested in the program. We moved from Scottsdale into this district so she could stay in this program, and she's on a variance over at Horseshoe Trails. In fact, we just sold our home. We're moving to Scottsdale, and our plan is to do whatever we have to do, open enroll or what we may, to be able to keep her in this program because of the Chinese immersion. And I would say that, so I own a financial advisory firm. My company does a lot of work with school districts around the state of Arizona. I'm very familiar with the funding issues and what's going on out there. So I understand there's a very big challenge out there. I'm a volunteer on the Excellence Committee when working on the Bond and Override Committee. I've been a board member on the Education Foundation. Been very involved in the district by any means possible. But I want to say that myself, like the others, we're here speaking on behalf of the 235 Chinese immersion parents at Horseshoe Trails alone. By the way, outside their support from the Spanish immersion as well. Every time this district has come to us for support, we have absolutely given it to you. When you come to us for votes, done. We do it. And the many times that you've come to us for money, we have given and we have given. And many times without even asking, right? So what's deeply concerning about this is that the administration did not come to us on this matter. We are the stakeholders. We're the voters. We should be consulted. And the big thing that I know in a district that is absolutely critical, and there's nothing more valuable than having an influential, committed, passionate base of parents, especially if they are on your side. And here we stand before you asking, why wouldn't you come to us on such a large decision? So we're asking that you uphold the 3 pillars of instruction, particularly the advanced world languages, which is hard to do when we're eliminating these language programs. We've proven to you over and over again tonight, I know, how important this is to the kids and to the parents and to the district. And we're now asking to be a part of the solution. We want to sit at the table side by side with the district and work with you. The biggest thing that I look here is that there's 2 main points that we want to make. And one of those is that we ask you to table all decisions with regard to the Chinese immersion program, reduction in force, and the future of the program. And then number 2 is we ask the board to direct the district administration to sit down with the parent group that's representing not only immersion families, but what's in the best interest of Horseshoe Trails, what's in the best interest of Cave Creek Unified. And we understand that the district may believe that they've exhausted all means to save this program. However, by not involving us as parents and as stakeholders, the district missed a huge opportunity. In sitting down with us, you're getting the benefit of our combined intellectual capital, funding resources, ideas, and support. Remember, we're right around the corner from a potential bond and override election, and if the district handles this correctly, instead of having a problem here, we could have a group of raving fans out there that are helping us with that, right? That's a continued momentum that we could have here. So I think that this district's really at a crossroad. You can't just involve the community when it's convenient. You have to involve us in all the decisions, and you'll receive our full support. I was on a call last night for hours and hours, and this morning for hours with parents. I've never seen so many committed, intelligent, wonderful people that want to help. And as I know, as many have said tonight, that they're very committed to their kids, and that's what you want. And I think with the right leadership, and I think we have that, okay, we can not only save this immersion program, but we can turn this district around by building on this momentum for a lot of other needs that we have in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Nyla, last name is NGO, who is also speaking for Melanie Meyer. 2 minutes. So speak loudly into that microphone.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board members, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. My name is Neela Ngo. I'm 10 years old, and I'm currently in my 5th year at Horseshoe Trails Elementary School. Everyone was devastated when we heard the news that immersion was going away. The only reason I started school here was for the Chinese immersion program. This program has helped my sisters and I learn in so many new ways. Several of my friends have even moved over to my school after they saw how amazing my Chinese had become. Never in a million years would we have suspected this would happen. Never. I want you to visualize how the Mandarin teachers are feeling. How do you think they feel? Undeniably, you know that they're heartbroken and tearless. All the Mandarin teachers are over and above devastated. What about the students in the Mandarin program? Can their voices be heard? How do you think we feel? Maybe even more heavy-hearted than everyone else. We were learning a new language. That's super cool. We want to be fluent in Mandarin. We've been working on it for years and years. Please understand that this school, this program, had an enormous impact on us. We've made so many friends and connections. Our teams are here. Our teachers are here. Our futures are here. And now they're taking it all away. It's all gone. In closing, I want you to please take notice of what you're doing before you can take action. Please help us continue our immersion program at school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Filene Sokol, who is also speaking for Kendall. 2 minutes.
Members of the board, Superintendent Monroe, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. We are an out-of-district family that has been in CCUSD since 2011. We came here because we heard such positive things about the Spanish immersion program. We have a current freshman, 7th grader, and 5th grader in the immersion program. Although I've had my concerns for the Spanish program at the middle and high school levels, with their staffing problems and the failure of teachers to speak Spanish in the classroom, I still hold the immersion program in high regards. As a non-Spanish speaker, I am impressed by what my kids have learned during their time at CCUSD. I've been extremely impressed with the program at Desert Willow and the quality of Spanish that my kids have learned from kindergarten to 6th grade. The cognitive benefits that being bilingual has been proven in research, to which I had emailed Dr. Monroe about. There is a reason that out-of-district parents have sought out CCUSD. It is because of the World Language Program. If you get rid of the program, what benefit does my family have for continuing in the district along with other families? We've sacrificed 15 to 25 minutes of driving each way for this program, along with other out-of-district families. I would like to ask that you please look at these numbers and weigh out the difference of cutting this wonderful program versus losing out on the families that come to CCUSD. I would also like to know, where does it end with the cuts? Today, it is the World Language Program, but what will come next? Our children deserve a quality education. Cutting programs is not the answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jeremy, Siebenaler, it looks like. He's also speaking for Amanda Dahl and Bridget Decker. 3 minutes, Mr. Leedy.
Good evening, President Hatcher and the Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff. I want to take maybe a different approach than a lot of the other speakers tonight. I want to take a step back and actually look at the broader picture. I've been very fortunate to have worked for 3 Fortune 500 technology companies over the course of my career in an executive capacity. This has given me a great perspective on just kind of the global nature in which we live in today. And I think that where our children are going to be encountering as they get older. When I look at where things are going in terms of technology and just culture in general, we're going through a pretty big technology shift, and they're called megatrends. And if you look at Asia, there's no secret that they have a voracious appetite to really compete in the global market. And they're catching up fast to us from a U.S. perspective. And, you know, if you look at the Asian region, China is obviously going to lead that space. I don't know if you've ever read the book AI Superpowers, but if you haven't, I would strongly encourage you to read it. It really talks about Chinese culture and the way they've started to invest into technology at the educational level, at the university level, how they've reconfigured cities to enable more innovation between software, hardware, and delivering it through the business. We're going through kind of an industrial revolution. When you look at big data, and you hear a lot about it in Facebook, you hear a lot about it from Google, data is kind of the new oil. If you haven't, I understand not everybody works in technology, so we don't understand that. And China wants to lead in this space, right? So you have artificial intelligence, you have EV, all these megatrends are coming up. And the reason that I say that is we have a big foundation of responsibility to kind of build out. And it starts with education, and it starts with the investment from an education perspective. We have to leave, you know, where we came from in a lot better place than where we left it, when we left it. And I think it's super important to understand the commitments we make at an educational level is pretty foundational, because countries that want to leapfrog us and become global powers and lead the market, we have to be familiar with them. We have to know their culture, and we have to know their language. And China is working hard in a lot of areas in these megatrends. And they're going to leapfrog us in certain areas, which means there's going to be a strong partnership, or there has to be, between the U.S. and China. And it starts here. It starts with us, and it starts in this district with the leadership, making sure we're making good foundational decisions in terms of STEM and in terms of Chinese immersion and Spanish immersion and other immersion programs. It's really important for us to compete and to stay competitive at the global market. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Serena, I believe it is. Siebenaler again, it looks like. Also speaking for Liz Mantle. So 2 minutes, Mr. Leedy. Are you speaking to me? Are you Liz? Liz, okay, thank you. So 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. I am wearing red today in support, honor, dedication, and sacrifices that we as parents have made to Horseshoe Trails Elementary School, our children, and our beloved Chinese immersion program. I am a parent of 2 children and have attended this school from the start of their academic career. I have made an ongoing personal sacrifice for years now to commute to 2 different schools in the district so that my son can have specialized education and a self-contained SPED classroom while his 2 sisters receive a valuable secondary language at Horseshoe Trails Elementary School. The Chinese immersion program at Horseshoe Trails Elementary School has provided heralded benefits for our students' academic achievements. Our children have significantly increased cognitive development, the already ability to communicate in a dual language by speaking, reading, and writing. They have become passionate leaders of appreciation to a multicultural world. In today's world and beyond, the fluency of secondary language will help bridge the communication gap between 2 cultures. The global world will increase these students' ability for better job opportunities, job security, appeal to global companies, and help them foster relationships of people from other countries. This is the #1 reason we have chosen Horseshoe Trails Elementary School for our children. We, the parents, and this community have the right to take a vigilant stance and a commitment that we honored from the start of this program. We need to ensure that the community is not silenced by a sole decision of our children's educational future. These children, parents, and teachers have invested their livelihood to encourage academic growth of this language program to benefit their future success, empower diversity, and aid in their adulthood achievements. I am proposing a financial call to action plan from the leaders of this district to allow the parents and community members the opportunity to sustain and relinquish back our beloved program. Our children and families need to be reassured that the adult leaders of the community are fighting for their social, emotional, and academic well-being. Let's all work to ensure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, same last name. Looks like Kiana, and the same last name. 1 minute.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe, community and staff members. I'm a 4th grade Chinese immersion student at Horseshoe Trails. I know you are probably going to shut down the program. I'm very sad to hear that. Almost all my friends are leaving this school because the program is going away. If the program goes away, my school family is breaking apart. The people I grew up with since preschool and kindergarten are leaving. The Chinese immersion program is so important to me. How will I remember the language that I've been taught if I don't use it anymore? Please find a way to keep it as taking away a smaller program that will give my school more money. There has to be another way into keeping the program. Please help me keep my school family together and my teachers together. Last week has been very emotional for me when I discovered the Chinese program is going away. The only reason I go to Horseshoe Trails is because of the Chinese program. That is why I think the Chinese program should thrive.
Thank you. The next speaker, Robin Palethorpe. Is Robin here? All right. Going to the next one, Christy Walker. I wonder if they're outside. Next one, Christy Pine. I'll recall these names again in the event that they're outside. Christy Pine, I think it is.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Monroe. My name is Christy Pine, and I've been a part of this great district since 2008. I currently have a junior and an 8th grader in it. I just wanted to come tonight to show my appreciation for what you're currently doing. Mr. Dolezal and Mr. Wright will tell you I've been asking if there's anything else my son could take other than Mandarin for the last 2 years. He struggles with his normal classes, so Mandarin has been almost impossible for him. I don't believe world language is necessary for all students at the junior high, and I wish I would have had the choice of whether he could take that or another elective. On the flip side is my daughter, who's an excelling student, and I want to thank Dr. Monroe for keeping the honors program here at the high school. She took these classes as a freshman and sophomore, which is now helping her in her AP classes as a junior. Cave Creek is a tight-knit community, and I know it can be hard to come into. Dr. Monroe, I hope everyone is treating you kindly. I want to tell you that I appreciate you and what you're doing for us, and I look forward to what is to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try it again. Robin Palethorpe.
I'm going to give over my time to Raul.
Okay. 2 minutes, Mr. Leedy.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Governing Board, Superintendent Monroe. I wanted to share my life experience with you. Language and culture is part of my DNA. I'm passionate about it. I'm a native Spanish speaker, but I have the opportunity to learn English since the beginning of my life, since I was a kid. I have been part of a global company, and that gave me opportunities to travel as well and to understand business in China. Based on my own experience, being immersed in a new language early on and on a periodic basis opens the door to learn a culture deeply and fosters the ability to form relationships. The world will always need the best leaders, leaders that can understand the global panorama, leaders that can intertwine and understand other countries' culture. I firmly believe our immersion program at Horseshoe Trails isn't just learning another language. Kids are getting confidence, embracing what other culture has to offer, sparkling their curiosity, and most important, they are culturally aware by acknowledging difference with their own culture. Long term, the program will enable them to compete and be successful in a growing, diverse environment. We came to the district because of the vision of language and world culture. This just resonated with us. By eliminating the program, I'm convinced it will create a long-term impact in the district. So I hope the board accurately represents the interest of the community today and votes not to approve the RIF to Mandarin teachers and reverse the decision to end Christina Lara's contract. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Christy Walker. Going once. Christy Walker. Okay. That concludes the speakers. Parents, we thank you for coming and speaking to us. You're welcome to remain for the rest of the meeting, or you may leave now. We'll Oh, Kendall. Okay, go ahead. She ready, Mr. Leedy? Okay.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Monroe, teachers, and parents. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Kendall Sokol, a freshman at Cactus Shadows High School. I'm aware that our district in Cave Creek has plans to discontinue the immersion program. I am concerned with your decision to discontinue the program from a student point of view because this will impact so many students' lives. My age group has opened the doors to learning a different culture, different dialects, for example, the difference between Spain Spanish and Mexican Spanish. It has enriched my knowledge of learning, and I feel it sets Cave Creek apart from any other school district. This is probably the best highlight of our district. This program is the reason why my family chooses to drive out of district. The immersion program will benefit each and every alumni who has taken it and has taken our knowledge to the next level and has given us scholarships for college and numerous job opportunities. Please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendall. Okay. This concludes the speaking. Board, do you want to take a couple-minute break while they're leaving? Yeah, go ahead. Since I don't know how this vote's going to go on 5, but because it's all lumped together, they obviously don't understand that we can't just extract certain things either. So when he's given these finance presentations, I'm going to ask some questions there that will relate to this.
Oh, he didn't? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, all right, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to begin again. Moving on to item 4, presentations. Item 4.1, Child Nutrition Director's Report, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy and Ms. Shannon Quinn.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board. I will turn the time over to Mrs. Quinn for her report.
Hi, good evening, Governing Board, President Hatcher, Dr. Monroe. My name is Shannon Quinn, and I am the Child Nutrition Director, and I have been the Child Nutrition Director for 9 years. I'm also a registered dietitian, and I have a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Arizona. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the Child Nutrition Department. Our child nutrition employees take pride in doing their job, which includes providing good nutrition and healthy eating for students and staff. We are regulated by the USDA, ADE, and the National School Lunch Program, and Maricopa County Health Department. Maricopa County Health Department does inspections twice a year, and ADE does them every 3 years, and then USDA just is the governing regulations over us. We provide catering for district meetings, and we also have a barbecue trailer for school lunch, and it's housed at Sonoran Trails. Currently, we have 22 employees plus 1 senior student worker, and we also have 10 special ed students that work with us every day at the high school. Senior workers vary from year to year on the numbers, but it's a great opportunity for them because they can work in the cafeteria for a couple hours and they don't have to work at night and they don't have to work on the weekends, so they like that. Free and reduced, district-wide, we are at 7.75 right now, and that's about normal. Anywhere, if you want to look at the past years, we're about 7 to 9% every year free and reduced. Average daily participation this year has increased, and that is mainly due to lunch and breakfast being free this year. So we usually hover somewhere around 40% participation every day. We have, just a fun fact, we have served about 34,000 pounds of produce this school year, and obviously we still have a couple more months to go, so hopefully we can increase that produce consumption. Our most popular entrees always include chicken. You've got chicken tenders, you've got chicken nuggets, you've got chicken everything, chicken Caesar salad, and of course, orange chicken is obviously a popular item. This year, the meal prices were free, but if it wasn't free, elementary would have been $2.50, Sonoran Trails would have been $2.75, and Cactus Shadows would have been $3. Our most requested special diet is gluten-free. Our supplier has a very variety of items that we can get from them, including hamburger buns, sliced bread, pizza crust, chicken nuggets that are gluten-free, various items. I usually meet with the parents, and we determine what is best for their child, and then that's what we'll provide their child when they come through the lunch line. Commodity is available through USDA, and this year we were given $117,000 roughly, and that is to be used on anything from canned fruit, canned vegetables, frozen fruit and vegetables, cheese, meats, and grains. And I usually take about 75 of that money and put it towards fresh produce so that we can have that. We can also buy fresh produce from our supplier. So. Our budget is about $1.5 million, and as you can imagine, most of our expenses are food. Online payments, last year we had about $300,000 just online payments, but the previous year, a full school year, we had $700,000 on online payments. Parents can still pay by cash or check, but obviously, online is gaining popularity. I do partner with ASU, PVCC, and Iowa State for dietetic internships. Dietetic internships are mainly master students who are trying to go for their dietetic registration exam, and they have to do an internship. So they come to Cave Creek schools to do their food service rotation. Last year, our department was chosen for the ASU Internship of the Year, and I was like ecstatic because I've been doing this for quite a year, having the interns come in. So you can imagine what a big deal it is for a U of A grad to get an ASU award. It was a big deal, so I was very excited. In the future, I'd like to do online ordering or pre-ordering meals just to see if we can speed up the lines a little bit and to give a little bit more customer service. I'd like to participate in the ASU fruit and vegetable consumption study. We did do it at Cactus Shadows 2 years ago, and I think last year we would have done it at Sonora Trails if it would have been a regular year. There is talk of 2021, 2022 having universal free lunch and breakfast again. It's not currently being funded by USDA though, so that's kind of just, I threw that into the future because it might be a future topic. In summary, just like the kitchen is the heart of your home, the cafeteria can provide the same feeling for most students. This is where they connect with friends and share stories. There are more kids than you can imagine that light up when we say, have a good day or happy birthday. The Child Nutrition Department will continue to do our very best for the Cave Creek Unified School District students. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Are there questions? No? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
President Hatcher and governing board members, I just want to give a shout out to Mrs. Quinn. Probably week 2 on the job, I was able to spend time with her, go over to a staff meeting, and felt of her passion and her enthusiasm for students. And I recognize the critical role that they play in our students' education. I've told the board before is our students, they have a collection of touch points throughout the day with adults. And so it's so important that our child nutrition staff is loving and caring and looks after our kids, similar to our bus drivers and our office staff members. And so it just takes about 2 minutes to be around Shannon and feel of her love and her dedication for her department and for her kids. And I will remind the board that like Education Community Services, this is a self-funded department. And so I tip my hat to Mrs. Quinn and a lot of the work that she's done, and looking forward to the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4.2, 2019 to 2020 audit report presented by Mr. Tim Leedy. Are you presenting, Mr. Tim Leedy?
Yeah, well, it's, yeah.
Okay.
President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe, this is Jill Shaw from Heinfeld and Meach. She's an audit partner with Heinfeld and Meach, and she will present the single audit reporting package and also go over the brief highlights of the comprehensive annual financial report that was included in your packet.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leedy. President Hatcher, members of the board, thank you for having me here this evening to present the audit reports. Before I get started, I would first just like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Leedy, Mr. Chiarello, and the whole finance department for everything that they do to get the audit done. It ends up being about a 9-month process from start to finish. We come out in the summer, we do preliminary work before the fiscal year has ended, and then we wrap up things with the final reports being due March 31st here at the end of the month. So ends up being a lot of documents that they pull for us, and we really appreciate that. As a result of the audit, there are several reports that get issued. The first is what we call the communication to governance, and this is a report, or actually just a letter that our audit standards require that we issue to governing boards, and highlights from a high level some of the important pieces of the audit process. It covers things like there were no major disagreements during the audit about auditing standards, audit principles, those kinds of things. There were no material misstatements, and anything of great significance that happened during the audit would be in that letter. So I'm happy to report that there were no significant items noted in that letter. It was pretty standard. But included within the letter is the engagement letter that management signs at the beginning of the audit, as well as the representation letter that they provide us at the end, where they're signing saying they take responsibility for the financial statements. They provided us with everything that we need during the audit process. And the date that letter is dated is the date that the audit report is dated. The next report that gets issued is the thick financial statement report that you have. It's called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR. That is the report that contains the audited financial statements, both on a government-wide basis, so it shows basically the bottom line of the entire district, as well as fund-based statements that show each individual fund, like the Maintenance and Operation Fund, the Food Service Fund, and that piece of the financial statements looks similar to the annual financial financial report that you all approve around October. So in addition to those audited financial statements, the CAFR also includes some statistical sections, a management and discussion analysis that adds some context to the numbers so that readers can see the trends and how many of the numbers compare to previous years. And the 2 pages of that report that are our pages are the independent auditor's report, where we give our opinion on the financial statements. And I'm happy to report that this year we were able to issue an unmodified report, which is oftentimes referred to as a clean audit opinion, saying that we did not find any material misstatements within the district's general ledger reports. The last 2 pieces that are issued are, one is the single audit reporting package. The single audit is a special audit that we are required to do, the district is required to have, because the district spends more than $750,000 in federal awards. So within that report is our opinion on the particular federal program that we looked at and audited during the year. We try to rotate that program. This year we looked at the special ed federal awards, that's sometimes referred to as the IDEA program. And so within that audit, piece of the audit, we had no findings that there was non-compliance within that program. The other part of that report is that we look at internal controls. So those are all the checks and balances over federal spending as well as non-federal spending, that the district has those policies and procedures in place to not only ensure that something didn't go wrong, but that it couldn't go wrong, that there are good practices in place to prevent or detect any misstatements or fraud before they even happen. So we spend a great deal of the time not only looking at the numbers during the audit, but also looking at those internal controls. And then the last piece, last report that's issued is called the Usfr Compliance Questionnaire. And that is a series of questions, several hundred questions that gauge the district's compliance with state statutes over various different areas such as procurement, cash balances, attendance reporting, all of these various areas. And within there, we're looking for that compliance with state statute. Within that report, there are a few minor findings. Because it is several hundred questions, most districts will have several things noted in that area, but nothing of an alarming nature that we would need to report here to you today. So that's kind of a summary of the overall audit reports that are issued, and I'm happy to answer any questions. All of the reports have met the reporting deadline of March 31st to the various entities such as ADE, the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, and all of those different places that they go.
Do you have the report in front of you?
I do.
By chance? Okay. I want to ask you, if I may, on page 50, note 4. I want to make sure I'm understanding this. Stewardship, compliance, and accountability. The deficit is approximately $1 million there when I combine all those categories. The last sentence says additional revenues received in fiscal year 2020 to 2021 are expected to eliminate the deficits. Where are we getting $1 million from?
Yeah, so in those funds, those are all grant funds. So in those funds, the district can spend up to the authorized budget through ADE, and the funding for those has been committed on ADE's part and the Federal Department of Education's part. So this is an instance where the money was spent throughout the year, but the cash has not yet been drawn down through the ADE system, which is anticipated that will happen next year. So it's a timing of just when the actual cash came in, that revenue is already committed on ADE's part and will come in.
Okay, you just said the key word, the revenue's committed, because I was hoping if it wasn't committed, we could commit it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a kind of an overall question. This was really comprehensive, and you talked a lot in here about finding no significant deficits, deficiencies, and material weaknesses. Over the last year, especially during the campaign, there was a lot of people in a lot of different places that were talking about transparency, and that there was not enough transparency, and there should be more transparency, and some suspicions that there was all this money kind of hanging around someplace that wasn't being used. And I didn't see anything in here that alluded to that. I wanted to see if this kind of clears up the fact that these things aren't really an issue, that things are being utilized well, that there is transparency, and that funds are being put where they're supposed to be.
Well, when we refer to internal control weaknesses, such as material weaknesses, we're looking that there are practices in place in order to prevent or detect misstatements or fraud. Part of the audit isn't necessarily looking at the cash balances that are left and analyzing how those should be spent. That isn't within the scope of the type of the audit that we do. So I guess to answer your question, that isn't something that we necessarily look at during the audit, is that piece of it. Does that help, clarify things?
Yeah, but overall, the transparency is there, and so that if people were curious about how the money was spent, it's documented.
Right, yeah, so if we had found a material spending of monies, that would have been reported as non-compliance and as a control weakness within the report. That is correct. That would be in the report.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leedy, did you want to illuminate or talk a little more about that quickly?
I would like to add just a little bit in that every month when the board receives its financial report, we have a cash balance report by fund that is included in your report every month. And to the question of cash balances and the use thereof, each of the funds within the cash balance or fund balance report that we have very specific uses. And so while there could be several millions of dollars that are showing in our ending fund balance at the end of the fiscal year, however, a large majority of those could be bond funds. Those can only be spent, not bond funds, but debt service funds can only be spent on paying off bonds for the district. In the case of specifically debt service funds, we have a payment that is due July 1st. So at the end, at June 30th, we have sometimes $3-4 million in the bond fund or the debt service fund that goes the next day on July 1st to make the debt service payment. So that's just an example of some of the funds that we do have. So to the person looking from the outside in, looking at these different fund balances, if they looked at the bottom line, it may show there's $11 million in budget or fund balances at the end of the year, but only a small portion of those could be used for any other purpose. So I hope that clarifies some of it. But we do include those every month so that the board can see what our cash balances are.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just like to say thank you for this whole report. This is the first time the board actually has got the comprehensive report, and I truly appreciate that. So thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yes, I do.
We love being invited to meetings, and as you can imagine, it's not the most exciting material. So I think it's great when boards are engaged and taking note of these various reports.
Thank you. Thank you. Item 4.3, fiscal year 2020-2021 budget update, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, member of the board, Dr. Monroe. This is the fifth in a series of budget updates on the state of the budget for the current year and the upcoming fiscal year. This update was presented to the superintendent's student cadre leadership team, superintendent's community council, and the superintendent's PTO council. However, it did not include the reorganization information that I put in here for the board meeting. So you're seeing this for the first time, and I will be brief on my report because I know that we only have a short time left before 9 o'clock, and some of this information you've already seen, so I will go through this rather quickly. As you know, schools are funded monthly on our current year student count, and as students decline, so does our M&O budget, and I think you've seen the other information about our funds and the sources of funds, and that as the footnote, all other unified school districts in Maricopa County other than Cave Creek have additional funding through either an M&O capital outlay or override or a bond. This slide, I believe that you've seen as far as our student count. You know that we've been declining over the last several years, and it shows our capture. It shows our decline for the 2021 school year. As you know, we've presented this slide before. We're a little bit up right now. I think we're around 5160 is our student count as of this last week or thereabouts. So we're still hovering in the 340, 50 range as far as enrollment is concerned. You've seen this slide about our deficit. We're still projecting roughly the same amount. Given the shortfall that we have, there may be some adjustments with our distance learning percentage that we have, but that's to be determined. We just submitted the report this last week to ADE for that. I think you've seen this slide regarding our budget priorities and what we're shooting for. It is a very complex situation that we're dealing with in terms of trying to look at the graduation requirements and work our way out from there. These are very tough decisions, and we recognize that, but we're trying to use this as our screen throughout everything to basically try to do the reset with the least amount of pain that we possibly can, yet still serve a majority of the students in the district. Our budget reduction rationale is, as I say, we're examining carefully our needs versus our nice to haves or our wants, and trying to maintain as much staff as possible. The one thing that we have had to do because of current year funding, and it's no fault of anyone's here, is that, and I think I've explained this before, in that if we had prior year funding, we would not be having the same conversations today that we have been having, because it would be based on different information. But we're trying to maintain as much staff as we can, and look and try to make student-centered decisions, and to minimize reductions to programs essential to graduation requirements. And again, if we do have students return in the fall, or even before the fall, we can start making different decisions as we move forward in our reductions. We are still projected to have $4.1 million, so, and I think I've explained most of this regarding current year funding and our structural deficit of approximately $2 million for capital outlay that's still basically looming out there that we haven't addressed yet. However, we're looking at some things that we're hoping that we're going to be able to move some capital capacity back over into capital this next year to address some of those issues. We only received 98% of our enrollment stability, well, because of, instead of receiving 98% of the enrollment stability grant, we only received approximately half of that amount. And then I mentioned the 95% funding for the budget reduction for the distance learning students. We did receive the CARES Act money of $300,000. I'm working on we have about $85,000 that we've spent over our allocation for ESSER 1, and we're going to move that into the ESSER 2 grant, and once that is moved into there, then we will set a priority for the further use of the ESSER 2 grant, but that will be coming up, and we'll apply for that grant. I believe it's next month that we get to apply for that. So as far as reprioritizing our budget is concerned, we have reorganized the district office. We're evaluating the sustainability of all district programs. We're looking at district-wide classified positions, eliminating vacant positions, and we're making changes in district paid benefits. We're looking at utility savings for air conditioning and heating set points, consolidating transportation routes, increasing facility use fees. And as the footnote to that, we have been collecting information from surrounding districts, and we have found that we are low in some of our amounts that we're charging for for our facility use fees. So we will be coming to the board in probably May with the revised fee schedule to incorporate those changes. And then last but not least, the reduction in force of our certified staff commensurate with the decline in student count. So these are some of the things that we've addressed in our reorganization. As you can see in these slides, the current areas of personnel that we have, and then the new areas of personnel. We're making changes in education and community services, so we're changing the structure in there. The finance department reorganization, we're reducing the amount of personnel in the finance department. However, we do plan on, other people are just going to have to absorb different duties, so we do plan on offering the same amount of services. And for food service, for the reorganization there, basically I've asked Mrs. Quinn to reduce her yearly labor hours at all of her sites because at this point we don't know whether we're going to be on free lunch for next year. It has helped us out this year to be on free lunch because of the more participation, and the more participation, the more reimbursement we get. But for next year, we're unsure, so I've asked her to cut back as much as she can, yet still provide the customer service and the quality meals to students. For transportation and warehouse, we're talking about eliminating the mechanics helper position. We're absorbing the warehouse supervisor into an open van driver position, and absorb the warehouse specialist too into an open bus driver position. And then we're going to consolidate our developmental preschool routes, combine some regular routes, and then charge actual cost for field trips for this next year to help out. One of the items further in the agenda tonight is the change in job description for the district nurse. We're suggesting going from 2 district nurses to 1 district nurse, which will be housed at Cactus Shadows, and then the schools will have health assistants, and then this position will report to the Director of Exceptional Student Services in the future. This simply shows, and I believe, has the board seen this slide before? I think we've gone over this before, so this is nothing new, but this is information that we provided to the PTOs, and I think this was well received for them to see basically the number of students and the configuration of the district and where they come from. Again, this is our capture rate, and we've talked about this. We have some work to do in this area, and we will continue to look at ways to try to minimize this and also turn this around. This slide shows the potential decrease over the future. As we get out farther to 2030, 31, it does get kind of fuzzy, but what we're looking at is the next 2 to 3 years. And as you can see, for 21-22, we're projected to come back up to about a little over 5,400 students, and then maintain that for a couple of years. So we're hoping this trend does continue so that we can strategically add back some of the items that we've had to reduce as a result of having to make projections on early student counts for this year. These are our demographic study conclusions, and I think we've gone over these. So next steps, we are surveying the community to look at why 50% of our students choose other education alternatives. We're already starting to contact parents of students that are within school in 1920, invite them back for next year. And we're looking at increasing our marketing presence, inform and educate community and its stakeholders regarding the financial condition, and then explore alternatives for additional funding that include a bond or override, donations, grant, tax credits, basically anything that we can find to help the district maintain. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Questions, anybody? I have several. Mr. Leedy, do you remember about approximately how many months we've been presenting deficit information to the community? Because I know we've seen these. This isn't new.
President Hatcher, members of the board, this is the 5th in this series, and I've had this information. It started out relatively small, but that's been the theme that we've had. And prior to my coming to Cave Creek, I don't know how long it was presented before that, but I do know that there was information presented about the structural deficit because of the district moving almost 96% of its capital outlay revenue limit over into the maintenance and operation budget for some time prior to my arriving in Cave Creek. I don't know how long that was.
Okay, thank you. The income that we receive is distributed, and I'm talking about the hiring of personnel now, based on ADM, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
The state, they don't really care about programs. They look at student numbers, and we hire based on student numbers, right? And based on that based on the student numbers.
That's correct.
So, taking that train of thought down the line, funding is not based on programs, it's based on students and seats. Do you know if there's parity? You might not know. Dr. Monroe might be able to answer this. If there's parity between the general ed classes, and I'm talking about class size, and immersion versus immersion.
Go ahead, Tim.
President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe, at the current time, and that's one of the reasons that we've adjusted the staffing model that we had with the immersion programs, because in the past, the way that the district was staffed was there was a staffing for the immersion programs, and then there was a staffing for the regular programs. And when I arrived here, I had conversations with people that were concerned over the inequities that were shown in the staffing models between the two. And I believe that Dr. Monroe alluded to some of those, in that you may have a class of 25 or 30 in one class, and you may have a class of 11 or 12 in an immersion class. So I don't think it was really equitable across all school levels or all grade levels. And one of the things that, as I illustrated in fact, it's this slide back up here, when we're talking about graduation requirements, if you look at the target that we've got here, and you talk about programs versus students when it comes to budget, there's very little, when you get right down to the center of it, there's very little that's required from the state of Arizona in terms of graduation requirements in the overall scheme of a district. There's a lot of things that are discretionary that districts do in the benefit of students, but then at some point you have to look at the long-term sustainability of those programs, and that's basically what we're doing.
Okay, and so are there other classes that will be cut? It doesn't matter which school we're talking about, the high school or whatever, because there aren't enough students to fill those classes? Is it just the immersion program we're talking about,
Yeah.
or are we talking about other classes?
President Hatcher, members of the board, there's a lot of work to do. It's not just the immersion programs, but I've already started that work with Mr. Dolezal and Mr. Vining. Our secondary schools, there's a lot of work to do to ensure that there's some equity in some of these programs at both the high school and the middle school. So to answer your question, it's a lot more than just per se an elementary immersion program, but we need to look at this system-wide to have a really good guaranteed model that's predictable and does not value other things over another, but really guarantees a student's experience within a reasonable class size.
Okay, thank you. And then on the last slide, I believe that was the next step slide on the bullet points, we're really going all out, it looks like, to attack all areas where we can get income. There's one that I think is missing, and to me it's the root of the problem, that we might want to add onto that slide, and that is the state government, the legislature. And so, I know this is coming up down the agenda, but will that be one of our focuses to be proactive in pushing pro-education funding legislation?
President Hatcher, yes. As a matter of fact, there's an item that's down in the agenda that will address that very issue, in that we're suggesting that we join the Education Finance Reform Group, which is a lobbying group that's very active. I've been a member of it in the past, and they do a lot of very good work for the school districts in Arizona to foster and also champion school district legislation that benefits funding.
Thank you.
And President Hatcher, members of the board, you know that's something that I'm working on as a superintendent. I was down at the Capitol today with Senator Ugente Rita, as well as Representative Dave Kavanaugh, to open the channels of communication so that they understand of our lobbying our district legislators on behalf of the students in Cave Creek Unified. So regardless of party or where they are, my priorities is the student and families in this district. And so that work's being done. So that was a productive visit today, I thought, at the Capitol.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Leedy?
I have one. On your cover page here on the agenda, it said the update was presented to the superintendent's cadre, the leadership team, superintendent's community council, the PTO council, and maybe this is more of a question for Dr. Monroe. What, in showing these groups this bit of information, what kind of feedback did you receive from them? Did they seem to understand the financial issues that we have here, or were they willing to give some ideas back, or any kind of good feedback or bad feedback?
Yeah, Board Member Brown and members of the board. There was good feedback. I think, when you have these groups and they brainstorm things like, adjusting the heat point or the cooling point on an air conditioning, by a few degrees, and then they might see that comes out to $15,000. They start to understand how big of a mountain $4 million is, and it's drastic cuts. It's not just, when I tell them, including special education departments, we're reducing about $2 million from the district office to protect the classrooms. As they start to have this feedback about maybe we should not overseed our fields, or maybe we should look at this a little different. They start to see that the amount is a big hill to climb, and so these groups have offered. And my charge is to help educate people as to the why, and not to gloom and doom and not to shock, but just to say, hey, these are the things we need to overcome together. But each one of those groups were able to share different ideas, and they were all very receptive. I will say people were very grateful to hear the information and to understand. And so you're going to see a lot of efforts from us to continue to educate the public so that we can all row in the same direction.
And then for Mr. Leedy, we have a hard and fast deadline, right, to submit our budget for the next fiscal year. That's July 1st, correct?
President Hatcher, Member Brown, yes, that's correct. We actually will bring the proposed budget at the first meeting in June, and then the second meeting in June to adopt that budget, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr.
And Member
Monroe.
Brown and members of the board, another thing I'll add on to that, what gets challenging on the budget is one of the reasons we want to offer contracts is so that we can retain our great employees. As the board is aware, unfortunately, a lot of our staff can go work elsewhere with our neighbors and be paid more because of perhaps the lack of an override over the past 10 years or so. So that's one of the sense of urgency that we have to have our teachers be able to have their contract, to be able to sign a contract so we can retain just the best and the brightest for our kids. So along with that budget deadline, there's a lot of moving parts.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Leedy. Item 4.4, update on Excellence Committee, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. The Excellence Committee is comprised of approximately 30 members of our community, business leaders, parents, teachers, and administration that met in December, January, and February to discuss the merits of holding an election in November of 2021. The next meeting of the Excellence Committee is actually tomorrow, and we've been discussing community surveying, types of elections, and also strategy with this committee. And the intent is to have a final meeting of the committee in April and provide a recommendation from the committee to the governing board in May to call for the election. I've already notified our investment bankers and our legal counsel that of the potential that we may call for an election in May, so that they will be prepared. If we don't, if we decide to do it in June, it's still permissible with the county election department. As we do approach June, though, we do have to, if the board so chooses, we do have to call for the election in June in order to make the deadline. So because of the inability of the district to pass overrides for many years, and we've moved up to 95% of our capital outlay limit to the M&O budget, this has created many deferred maintenance, technology, and infrastructure expenditures that need our attention. Through consultation with members of the Excellence Committee and Facilities Management Group, the district created a needs assessment document to identify potential bond projects, and I believe that document was shared with the governing board on a color-coded basis. We made a few changes to that as a result of our directors meeting on this last Friday, so the governing board hasn't seen that document, but it still totals $40 million. We haven't changed the amount. We've just changed some of the priorities within that, and so we will be providing that to the governing board in the next report. So. And like I say, we will, in April, we also intend to provide the district with, or the governing board with, the surveying data from primary consultants, because they're going to do some polling of district and determine the voters' feelings on Proposition 208, the efficacy of a bond election or an override election, and basically voter sentiment with regard to an election. So be prepared for that information. If we do decide to go for a bond election, we're planning on 2 sales, one for $25 million to address immediate needs of the district, and then one for $15 million that would be approximately 2 years later to push us. We're hoping for a time frame with the bond election to cover at least 5 to 8 years of capital needs in this one bond, so that we're not going back to the public. So that stay tuned for that. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for
you. The Excellence Committee, they're talking about the difference between these two things, where the bonds are for this stuff, and the M&O override, if we went for that too, that would be more for the programs and things of that nature. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Number 4.
And so they are making those aware to the committee, and that's part of the survey as well, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And that will be part of the surveying information. That has been a topic of discussion within the Excellence Committee.
Yeah, Vice President Fortney, members of the board, I appreciate the work of the Excellence Committee, all the parents and people that join, and it's for whoever wants to join to look at this critically and very carefully. I just looked at some data the other day, and Proposition 208, out of about 50,000 voters within our school district boundary, about 34,000 voted no on Proposition 208, although it did pass at the state level by 2,000 votes. So, and that was just in November, and that was 4 or 5 months ago. So we really need to look at these things critically, understanding that our school district population is the minority of voters within our school district boundaries. And so hence our education effort, hence us trying to educate people so they see the importance of having good schools in a community. But that was a pretty staggering statistic to see. And so we got our work cut out for us. We need to think about these things critically. And I appreciate the Excellence Committee looking at bond consideration, override considerations, and then we'll do some polling to get kind of the pulse of the community.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you, Mr. Leedy.
Thank you.
Item 4.5. I'm not going to read all that. I'll let you read it, Dr. Monroe. But this is basically public comments to be expanded by emails requested by Vice President Fortney, presented by Dr. Court Monroe.
Yes, President Hatcher, members of the board, I'll be quick here. It's mostly a short presentation for the community, and I know we're heading up to 9 o'clock, President Hatcher, so we'll have to do a vote here pretty soon to go beyond the 9. But Tim, if you can pull up that PowerPoint so everyone can see it. Basically, what I'd like to present is how is a constituent heard by the school board when they have should be a blue one, Tim. Next slide. So, next slide. How are community voices heard by the school board? Well, we reached out to various districts to see how do they hear their community voices in actual governing board. And so we reached out to various districts, and to protect their identity, we just call them District 1 through District 6. So in District 1, they have their board meetings open to the public. They do not accept any public comments through email to the board. When they had virtual meetings, their public comments were only allowed on agenda items. Next slide. District number 2 is still having their board meetings virtually, and they accept public comments on a Google form. The form is downloaded as a PDF and sent to the board before the meeting. However, public comments are not read at the meeting. The board president summarizes the theme of the comments. And once they begin in-person meetings, they will not accept any online comments any longer. District 3 accepts online public comments when they meet virtually and in person. There's actually a link on their website for the public to submit comments. This district has a PIO, a public information officer, a staff member. We do not have that luxury. That compiles the comments and gives a summary to the board. They're not read aloud in the meeting. Next slide. District 4, their board meetings are open to the public. They've stopped accepting online public comments mid-pandemic. Interestingly enough, they received 400 to 500 comments, and then the district, they would categorize those comments, but the district was accused of hand-picking the comments that were read at a board meeting. Hence, they've discontinued that practice. District 5, they meet in public. Public comments are emailed, and the marketing department compiles those, and they upload them to the website for the public and the board to view. They're not read aloud in the meeting. And again, the reason I'm sharing these is just so the board can see kind of the market and how other districts receive their comments, and then I'll comment on how we do. District 6, their meetings are in person. They have a designated email for public comments, similar to what we do here in Cave Creek. Depending on how many people come for a public comment, if there's 1 to 15, they'll have 3 minutes. This district also adjusts if there's 16 to 30 individuals, and then 31 plus. And comments are scanned and emailed to the board so they can also see them. In District 7, their meetings are in public. They are allowing emailed comments that are printed out for the board, and the board president actually chooses which comments to read due to the volume. So, next slide. I do want to let the board know since January 1, since me being on the job, I've had one request of a community member to speak to the board meeting, in a board meeting through email while not being present. Other communications that come to the board in the form of a concern or complaint are followed up with on that individual when appropriate, at times by me or at times by someone else. So in Cave Creek, how can one be heard by the school board? And we've been able to see that tonight. First of all, you can attend a board meeting in person and fill out a call to the public form. Needs to be completed and turned into the board secretary prior to the meeting, which is delineated in our board policy. The board may not be able to comment, but may refer to the superintendent to study or have staff or him or her reply later on. All of our board meetings are scheduled on our webpage. Next slide. As we read, as President Hatcher read tonight, a board member can respond if there's a direct criticism of a board member. A board member can direct staff to look into the matter after the public comments is made, or a board member can ask for the item to be placed on a future agenda item, which our current board has done in various situations. Another way how constituents and stakeholders can be heard by the board is they can email board members. And President Hatcher, I didn't select you for any certain reason here, but our email addresses are on the webpage. So the superintendent or the designee, that's myself, will ensure there's a response when that is appropriate. And sometimes those responses may come from a director, may come from myself, may come from someone in the chain of command, or even a principal. Next slide. And then just to remind the board lastly is in our policy, this dictates how we communicate with the public. Official communications policy, board concerns, and board action as appropriate will be imparted to the community by the superintendent. So as the spokesperson for the board, myself, I respond to emails, as the board is aware. On behalf of the governing board, I ensure there's a response to an email when that is appropriate. And one of the primary reasons this is done, as our board knows, this is done to protect the board from any potential open meeting law violations. So I just wanted to spend 3 or 4 minutes so the public knows that there's, primary ways that they can interact and be heard by the board through email or through the public call at a board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Moreau. We are going to need to vote because we still have items to cover, and we won't finish prior to 9. So we need a motion to take our meeting past 9 o'clock.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue with our meeting past 9 o'clock. Thank you.
We need a vote?
Oh, yep, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Continuing on. Item 5, action consent. Is there a motion to approve item 5, action consent, as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 5, action consent, as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Abstain. The motion carries, and item 5 is approved as presented.
President Hatcher, members of the board, if I can, with that vote, I would like to call up our new executive directors of both secondary leadership and elementary leadership. The board just approved their appointment, so I'd invite Nancy Diab-Scott and Dr. Patty Jensen to come to the microphone. Let me just read a little bit about these individuals. We're very excited to have them join the Cave Creek family. So Nancy Diab-Scott has been in education for 20 years. During her time as an educator, she's been an English and social studies teacher at the secondary level. She's been a preschool to 8th grade assistant principal. She's been a high school assistant principal. She's been a middle school principal and a high school principal. And most recently, she's the director of secondary curriculum and career technical education. She's worked with site and district leaders to ensure that strategic goals are met to ensure student success. Mrs. Scott has been a member of many local, state, and national level committees to promote educational policy. Mrs. Scott has an amazing husband, Patrick, sitting back here, and 2 fur babies, Raina and Izzy. I don't think the fur babies are here, right? They're at home. Mrs. Scott is thrilled with the opportunity to join the leadership team at Cave Creek and work collaboratively with our staff members, parents, students, and community members to provide a world-class education. So let me introduce Dr. Jensen, and then I'll let them say just a few words to the board. Dr. Patty Jensen, she should look familiar to you. She served as an elementary school principal for the past 8 years in both Texas and Arizona. She has taught at the elementary and the high school levels. She served as a district bilingual ESL coordinator and as an assistant principal prior to her years as principal. She earned a PhD in educational administration and foundations in 2011 from Illinois State University and continues to research and publish as she is able. Her most recent article discusses the importance of listening and leadership. She comes to us all the way, miles away, from our very own Lone Mountain Elementary School, where she will finish the year strongly and work closely with the future principal to ensure a smooth transition of leadership. Patty lives in Cave Creek with her husband, who is the Director of Writing Programs at ASU, go Devils, and there are 3 girls who all attend Lone Mountain. So I'm very excited to introduce to the board Mrs. Scott and Dr. Jensen. I'd welcome you guys to say just a few words.
President Hatcher, members of the board, and Dr. Monroe, it's a pleasure and it's exciting. I'm excited about a bright future in Cave Creek, and while I am sad to leave Lone Mountain, I'm confident that I'll be leaving it in capable hands, because we'll make sure that we select an appropriate person to do so. And so I'm excited, and I think we have a great future ahead of us. Thank you.
President Hatcher, members of the board, Superintendent Monroe, and community and staff members, I'm super excited to come over to Cave Creek and work with this wonderful community. I've seen the passion and the love that you have for students, and the passion and the love that parents and our students have for the community, and I'm just excited to be a part of the Cave Creek family. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, item 6, old business, 6.1, approval of the revised salary schedule for classified exempt salary range for the 2021-2022 school year, and the revised classified support staff salary range for the 2021-2022 school year, and the revised substitute rates for the 2021-2022 school year, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board. Dr. Monroe, administration is presenting for approval the revised salary schedule for the classified exempt salary for the 2021-2022 school year, and the revised classified support staff salary range, and the revised substitute range for 2021-2022 school year as well. If you have any questions, Mrs. Lynch is here to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there questions? Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded that item 6. Oh, no, it hasn't. We need a motion. Sorry, it's late.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that item 6.1, approval of the revised salary schedule for classified exempt salary range for the 2021-2022 school year, and the revised classified support staff salary range for the 2021-2022 school year, and the revised substitute rates for the 2021-2022 school year be approved as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 6.1 is approved as presented. Item 7.1, new business, education and community services, summer enrichment / academic program, presented by Ms. Gina Durbin.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I appreciate Mrs. Dermott being here. If the board has any questions, she may be able to answer them better than I do. But so Gina and her department, the Education and Community Service Department, they offer preschool through 12th grade enrichment and academic programs each summer. And they also have limited classes for adults. Attached to this item, as the board can see, are the 2021 summer programs and fees. So you have the enrichment classes and activities. You also have the Kids Club summer camp schedule and the summer salaries. The administration would recommend that the governing board take the following action. Move that the governing board approve the summer academic programs and fees described, and then Gina and her department can get to planning our summer.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Additional questions or questions at all? Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.1, Education and Community Services, Summer Enrichment Academic Program as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.1 is approved as presented. Item 7.2, approval of new job description for the district school nurse, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. For the 2021-2022 school year, Cave Creek is looking to broaden the scope and duties of the school nurse to encompass all campuses and departments. This new job description reflects the new lens for a CCUSD district nurse overseeing the pre-K through 12 school health program for CCUSD, working in partnership with staff and administration in accordance with the district's vision, mission to promote student achievement. And as I mentioned, this was discussed briefly in the PowerPoint presentation as a result of the district reorganization. Therefore, administration would recommend that the governing board approve the new job description for the district school nurse as presented.
So moved.
Second. Are there questions?
Just one little question. I see on the job description, this is a 10-month term. Would this be something in the future that might extend out to become a 12-month position?
President Hatcher, Member Brown, I believe that this was a 10-month position before, was it not? That's, yeah. So there's a possibility if the need would exist, but traditionally in the districts that I've been in, the district nurses work the same calendar roughly as the students.
Thank you, Mr. Leedy.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.2, approval of the new job description for the district school nurse as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.2 is approved as presented. Item 7.3, request to authorize RFP for employee voluntary employee paid ancillary benefits, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. Administration is requesting authorization to issue a request for proposal for voluntary employee paid ancillary benefits. The district's intention for this solicitation is to solicit vendors that can provide these benefits while considering their services. And the reason that the district is selecting this process is because it allows for the district to consider other than price when determining the efficacy of each vendor. So once we do issue the request for proposal, we will receive the bids back and then evaluate those bids and bring those to the board at a future date for consideration. So therefore, the administration recommend that the governing board authorize the issuance of a request for proposal for voluntary employee paid ancillary benefits and allowing a multi-term award.
So moved.
Second. Questions? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.3, request to authorize RFP for employee voluntary employee paid ancillary benefits as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.3 is approved as presented. Item 7.4, Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchasing Agreement with Chandler Unified School District for Education Finance Report Group, EFRG, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. Attached is a copy of the IGA by and among Chandler Unified District, number 80, and participating school districts. I believe that there are about 20-plus school districts that participate in the Education Finance Reform Group. And as mentioned in the presentation earlier, Public Policy Partners is a full-service government relation and lobbying firm whose clients expect outstanding service. P3 prides itself on being a firm that provides clients with personal touches and are often ignored. They have extensive work in the legislature, and they do have meetings. I believe it's like once a month that we attend meetings. Some of those are in Zoom, some of them are in person, but they are a very good lobbying organization, and they do work that some of the alphabet groups can't do because they have to provide all things to all people, so to speak. So the funding source for this IGA would be our indirect cost fund, and administration would recommend that the governing board approve the Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchasing Agreement with Chandler Unified District for Education Finance Reform Group as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Mr. Leedy, does this group report back, who does the group report back to in terms of progress they've made on behalf of our district?
President Hatcher, members of the board, I would be the liaison, and I generally attend the meetings for EFRG. So, and I have regular contact with Megan Delortino, she's the president of P3.
And, I'm familiar with how ASBA works in that regard. Does this group come to you and say, these are the legislation we're focusing on? Yeah, and then
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
What happens generally is we have early on usually it's in November, December, they have a meeting, and it's basically a vetting of the highest priorities. So we basically put into the hopper our ideas for legislation for the upcoming session, and then the group discusses that and then prioritizes the educate, because they only like to focus on 3 to 4 primary issues for the legislature each year to try to make the most impact, rather than having a whole bunch of little agenda items. So we vet that process and then settle on the 3 to 4, and then she takes that forward for the group.
And are there other districts in the same position we're in? I can't remember that term that's used for us. It's based on the funding formula where we don't receive a lot of the money that goes to the state because it's redistributed, amongst other districts.
President Hatcher, member of the board, yes. Scottsdale is in the same boat that we are, basically, in terms of having to submit money to the state because they're a non-state aid district. Fountain Hills as well is a non-state aid district. So there are other districts that are in that group that are in the same position as us.
Okay, okay, because I would think that for us that's critical. So, all right, thank you. Any other questions?
And Mr. Lee, did you recall for this last one, what the main areas of focus were for this session?
President Hatcher, Member Fortney, I wasn't involved in the vetting process this last year because we weren't a member of, and so therefore I didn't attend the meetings, but I can certainly get those, and we can provide those with the governing board.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Leedy, will this group also provide like marketing material or other supplemental material that we can send out to the community based on things that I feel like the education portion for our community is key. Do they provide anything like that as well?
President Hatcher, Member Walker, no, they don't provide those marketing materials per se, but they do provide, sometimes they do provide general information to all their districts of the contents of what the bills are and how they're moving through the legislative process, that we could send those out.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Hearing no more questions, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.4, intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement with Chandler Unified School District for Education Finance Report Group, EFRG, as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstained? Motion carries. Item 7.4 is approved as presented. Item 7.5, approval of 1.7% increase for all employee groups for fiscal year 2022, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. On Monday, March 1st, the district administration met with representatives from Siegel Company to review the district's health insurance renewal for fiscal year 2022. Initially, the renewal for Blue Cross Blue Shield called for a 14.27% increase in premium, remaining with the same plan design. Through negotiation with employee groups and Blue Cross Blue Shield, the district was able to change our plan design and save approximately $100 per employee per month for our employer-paid health care. This enabled the district to negotiate and agree to an overall 1.7% compensation increase for all employee groups for fiscal year 2022. Certified, classified, and administrative groups met in interest-based negotiations on March 2nd and agreed to the salary and benefits package proposed. The district will continue to evaluate insurance programs in the future for possible plan design modifications to benefit employees and their families. And the funding source for this is our maintenance and operation budget. So therefore, the administration recommend that the governing board approve a 1.7% increase for all employee groups for fiscal year 2022 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Are there questions or comments?
I did want to comment on this a little bit because of the year that we have had and the pressures that the teachers have been under from the start and even going into last year, and the stuff that we're dealing with here as far as the reduction in staff and all that, that there has to be something good for these people that have been working so hard. So I'm really thrilled that we were able to come up with something that would be able to do this. This is a good thing for our staff in the light of everything else that's been going on.
It is well deserved.
And Mr. Leedy, to be clear, this is not, this is coming strictly from insurance savings, right?
President Hatcher, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
We were able to, because of the $100 per month per employee, and we did have discussions with the employee groups regarding the changes that this would necessitate in our programs, because we're going from 4 plans to 2, and there will be some more out-of-pocket for the employees as a result of going to this. But those were the 2 top priorities in the employee surveys. Was they wanted to have an increase in salary, and they wanted to maintain 100% paid district insurance for the employee. And through this negotiation with Blue Cross, we were able to achieve both of those objectives.
That's great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Leedy, then are we locked in with Blue Cross Blue Shield then for the next fiscal year, or is this stretched out over 2 or 3 years?
President Hatcher, Member Brown, no, this is just for 1 year. We continue to look at our benefits package, and we will also look this next year we're also having, as a side note, we're having another company that is evaluating our benefits and prescription drug program to see if there's additional savings that we can achieve through Blue Cross Blue Shield. If that's not possible and we so choose, we can go back out to bid this next year for additional coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, hearing no more questions. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.5, approval of a 1.7% increase for all employee groups for fiscal year 2022 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.5 is approved as presented.
President Hatcher, members of the board, on behalf of our certified staff, our classified staff, and our administrative staff, I just would like to thank the board for this gesture. I agree with Vice President Fortney. It has been a challenging year for our employees, and it's obviously very important to this board that we value our employees and our work and their work. A cost of living increase at a bare minimum is what we can provide, and I do think that's a win, and it shows that we do appreciate. I also want to give kudos to the IBN group, to Caroline Lynch, Mr. Leedy, to our teacher group, our classified group, our administrators, to try to be creative and see how we could make this work. And so, as I mentioned, on behalf of all of our staff, I would just like to thank the board.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. Item 7.6, approval of contract Exhibit A for 2021-2022 12-month administrator benefits, executive directors and directors, vehicle allowance, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. Administration is presenting the revised administrative contract language for Exhibit A for the 2021-2022 school year 12-month administrative benefits, executive directors and directors' vehicle allowance for approval. Contracts will be issued to all administrative employees on or about March 9th. I believe it's going to be the 15th, though, isn't it? It's actually on March 15th. It's going to be next Monday. So, therefore, administration recommend that the governing board approve the contract Exhibit A for 2021-2022 12-month administrator benefits, executive director and directors vehicle allowance year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there questions, comments? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.6, approval of contract Exhibit A for 2021-2022, 12-month administrator benefits as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.6 is approved as presented. Item 7.7, approval of the new job description for ECS manager, ECS coordinator, ECS program assistant, ECS office assistant, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. The ECS manager will develop and oversee preschool, child care, enrichment, and summer programming for children and to be involved in other education and community service programs as needed. The coordinator will coordinate and supervise the preschool programs and child care programs to be involved in other ECS programs as needed. The program assistant will provide support to the ECS coordinator, and the ECS office assistant will provide support to the entire ECS department. And this was briefly touched on in the PowerPoint that we went over as part of the reorganization of the district. Therefore, the administration would recommend that the governing board approve the new job descriptions for the ECS manager, ECS coordinator, ECS program assistant, and the ECS office assistant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Are there questions? Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.7, approval of the new job description for ECS manager, ECS coordinator, ECS program assistant, ECS office assistant, as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.7 is approved as presented. Item 7.8, approval of revised job descriptions for paraprofessionals, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. The Paraprofessional 1 and Paraprofessional 2 job descriptions are revised to the following new titles. It's going to be Paraprofessional, which is a bus aid and inclusion, a Paraprofessional inclusion, a Paraprofessional PLC or Positive Learning Center, Paraprofessional resource, and Paraprofessional self-contained life skills and developmental preschool. Therefore, administration would recommend that the governing board approve the revised job descriptions for professionals as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
I heard. All right. Questions? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.8, approval of revised job descriptions for paraprofessionals as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.8 is approved as presented. Item 7.9, approval of revision to job title from administrative assistant to the associate superintendent of operations and finance to administrative assistant to the chief financial officer, presented by Mr. Tim Leedy.
Thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. This is simply a cleanup item to revise the administrative assistant to the associate superintendent and finance to the administrative assistant to the chief financial officer. This was an oversight because of the title change back when I was hired in July. So therefore, administration would recommend that the governing board approve the revision to the job title from administrative assistant to the associate superintendent of operations and finance to the administrative assistant to the chief financial officer as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? It's a shorter title name.
Yeah, right.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.9, approval of revision to job title from administrative assistant to the associate superintendent of operations and finance to administrative assistant to the chief financial officer, be approved as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Abstain. Motion carries. Item 7.9 is approved as presented. Item 8, future agenda items. There are none. Item 9, upcoming calendar events presented by Dr. Monroe.
President Hatcher, members of the board, we have spring break coming up. So everyone is excited for March 22nd to 26th. We'll be spring break, our schools will be closed. By way of note, the district office will be working 4 10-hour days during spring break, so the district office will be open March 22nd to the 25th and closed on the 26th. We also have our spring recess, which is upcoming. That will be on Friday, April the 2nd. Schools and the district office will be closed. And finally, very exciting for the board to mark their calendars. Hopefully you can make it to our Inspire Excellence Awards on May the 12th in the evening, and that will be at the Cactus Shadows Fine Arts Center.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Monroe. Item 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.